Hey friends, lots to talk about today, lots going on, and we'll get right back to the news of the day and our Bill Press show this morning in just a second. But first, I want to take a little time out once again to ask for your help for all of us here at Free Speech TV. You know, I don't have to tell you how much, I've told you before, how much we love being with you first thing in the morning, bring you the news of the day. We love the fact that you're with us, but you know we wouldn't be here without you, and we really do need your help. That's what makes the difference on Free Speech TV. We don't get any corporate money. We don't get any government funding. All of our, we don't get any commercial funding. All of our money, all of our revenue for Free Speech TV comes from you, our viewers. I know you appreciate Free Speech TV. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching. You know that you get here totally unfettered, totally independent, just right, straight news of the day with good progressive commentary all day long from me and from Tom Hartman and Stephanie Miller and Amy Goodman, all of our good friends at Free Speech TV. Well, we wouldn't be here without you. It's just as simple as that. You've been very generous in the past. We're very excited that so many of you already, this pledge drive, have stepped up to the plate. We thank you for that, and if you haven't already done so, I encourage you to make that big call today to 877-378-8669 and make your pledge. Be as generous as you can to Free Speech TV, just to keep this independent, the one single progressive television network on the air, and that is Free Speech TV. And encourage you to do so. Very, very excited to be able to offer you. If you could just give us $10, pledge $10 a month, that's $120 a year. You get a Bill Press Show mug and a pound of coffee from our favorite coffee shop downstairs here in our building. If you can up that to $20 a month and a pledge of $240, which we thank you, you'll love the cheese from Cowgirl Creamery. It comes from a part of Marin County where we live in California. I think it's the best cheese in the entire world. We'll send you a selection of Cowgirl Creamery. And for $360 or $30 a month, you get the Cowgirl Creamery, Cowgirl cheese selection, and the Bill Press mug. That's $30 a month or $360. And then, very, very special, and some of you have signed up for this already, if you can afford to help Free Speech with $1,000 and make your way to Washington, D.C., here's what. We will take you out to dinner at one of our favorite restaurants in Washington and invite you to come here the next morning in studio with us to see the show. That'll be a great deal of fun. Hope you'll take advantage of that. Again, the number to make your pledge is 877-378-8669. We depend on you. Please be as generous as you can. Thank you.
In 1920s America, the Great Depression effectively erased consumer demand. Struggling manufacturers needed new ways to get people buying again. Innovative production processes like stamping and use of molds allowed them to use new materials for their designs. Products using vinyl, chrome, aluminium and plywood began appearing. American industrial designers began introducing streamlined, efficient shapes that shouted progress. Bel Geddes pioneered what we now refer to as utilitarian art. Things that had little reason to look sleek, now all of a sudden did. At the 1939 World Fair featuring Bel Geddes' immensely popular Futurama exhibit, a new era of American industrial design proudly claimed to be building the world of tomorrow. Americans found great positivity in these futuristic forms. Yay. Things were looking up. American industrial designers realised that by making objects look great, people simply wanted them more. From cars to kitchen appliances, the most influential society on earth was spending money again. Mass consumption had arrived. Advertisers finally had lots to talk about. Personal taste could be expressed through the things you bought. Style became equally as important as function. Chair designers like Eames and Saarinen didn't just design seating, they created desirable lifestyles. People behind the products suddenly were stars. Everyone wanted to know who they were. Raymond Loewy was one of the shining lights of American industrial design. His face ended up on every coffee table in the nation. Toothpaste packaging promised whiter teeth. Washing powder packaging promised whiter whites. Who knew such simple household objects would shape the tastes and ambitions of an entire society? American industrial design improved America, functionally, culturally and intellectually, and exported it around the globe.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Pope Francis, happy first anniversary. He's already made quite an impact in 1 year. Good morning, everybody. What do you say? Great to see you today. Good to be back with you. It is Thursday, March 13. This is the Bill Press Show with Bill Press here for the first time this week. Happy Monday. For me, at any rate. Back from Las Vegas, and don't ask me what happened in Las Vegas, because you know as well as I what happens in Las Vegas. That's where it stays. Great to see you today. Thank you for joining us. We got lots and lots to talk about today. Thank you for being part of the program as we gear up here to tackle the news from Washington, from around the country, around the globe, and of course take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Get ready, get in line with your comments. And send us your comments also on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Great big thank you to Peter Ogburn for sitting in here and keeping the show going in great form for the last 3 days. Hello, Peter.
Welcome back. We're all happy to have you back.
Yeah, well, that's what they say. Right? Mm-hmm.
Listeners especially.
No, we'll find out. All right, no, you did a great job. Good comments. Everybody's happy.
Happy to have
Lisa Murphy. Hello, Lisa.
Good morning.
Alicia Cruz there, standing by to take your calls. And Cyprian Bolding, videographer, keeping us looking good on Free Speech TV, where you can also find us if you've got the satellite dish on on DirecTV and the Dish Network. So how about it? We know I heard you yesterday talking about the fact the president was up in New York, went to stop by the Gap, picked up a few things for the First Lady and for the daughters there, recognizing the Gap because the Gap has is paying its employees $10.10 plus, and so kind of a little reward for that. He wanted to highlight how important the Gap is. Stop by there in New York. David Letterman said there was something very unusual about the president's visit to the Gap.
And then during the day, President Obama went shopping at the Gap. I'm telling you, there hasn't been so much security at the Gap since the time Lindsay Lohan showed up. Do you remember that? Thank you, Anton. What a scene it was at the Gap. Here you had President Obama shopping for gift items for his family, being assisted by the sales clerk, Anthony Weiner. Wow.
I wonder what happened.
That's right. He's working at the Gap.
Yeah. I wonder what happened to them.
And earlier today, John McCain, who was also in town, was seen shopping at the really old Navy.
Oh, gosh. Letterman. Comes through.
Yeah.
He comes through. Yeah,
funny.
indeed. So, did you miss me?
Of course. Yes, of
right.
course.
You were missed.
We always miss you. It just wasn't the same without you here.
No, right. I'll tell you, I have this thing. I love Las Vegas. I was there for a conference for 3 days, 2 days, and then had to take the red eye back. But that place just keeps it's amazing to me. But what recession? I mean, it is packed with people, right? And they keep building more and more hotels, and hotels are nicer and nicer, and more casinos, and they're all packed. And it's just an unbelievable scene, and it never sleeps. I mean,
Yeah,
I looked
you're
at
right.
I had a beautiful hotel room at the Encore, one of the Wynn hotels at the one end of the Strip, and I had a great hotel room looking all the way down the Strip. And I woke up one morning about like 4:30, whatever, 5. I just got up and looked out, and the Strip was just busy with traffic.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is. I was out there not so long ago, and it's you're right. You just look at when you hear these stories from around the country about recession and budget crunches and all this stuff, and then you look at a place like Las Vegas, the amount of money that pumps through there.
And the shops.
And
I
the
mean,
shops
the
and
most
the
expensive
restaurants
shops
and the
in the
gambling.
world,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's Bellagio or Caesar's Palace, they're all there. And they're, you know, I don't know, and people are in there buying stuff. God,
And let's be
unbelievable.
honest, though, if you're going to go out there, the best thing to do is 100% free. That's just a people watch.
Absolutely. Best people.
And it doesn't cost you a dime.
No, best people watching. And shows are great. You know what? I saw Penn and Teller.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I never seen their show. I've seen them on TV a lot. And
Yeah.
they're very funny.
Those are some talented guys.
Very clever.
I've
too.
never seen their stage show.
And one of them talks too much and the other doesn't talk at all. So you have to kind of balance that out.
Right.
You can't complain too much about the guy that talks too much because the other guy never says anything, right? So, all right, so back from Vegas with a great lineup today. Very, very important. Congressman Chris Van Hollen, ranking Democrat on Senate Budget Committee, is going to be here to give his personal views on Paul Ryan's comments yesterday about the poor. And we'll talk about that, too, at the top of this hour. Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan talk about other things about that big loss in Florida in the special election down there. We'll also have reporters in from The Nation and from Politico. We'll get right to Paul Ryan. But first,
This is the Full Court Press.
Start with a little breaking news from overnight in
breaking
Austin, Texas, out of South by Southwest. Crazy story. 2 people are dead, 23 injured in a car crash. Police pulled over a drunk driver, and we're about to start checking his blood alcohol level, and he took off, ran through a barricade, struck 2 people on a moped in a very crowded area of the South by Southwest Festival. Killed 2 people who were on a moped, like I said, injured 23 others. The man has been captured, detained. It's not a good situation, but it just happened a couple of hours ago out in Austin. So we will keep an eye on that and keep you posted as the morning goes on.
well, tragic. That's
Messed
rough.
up story, man.
Yeah, really sad. And I guess he never even stopped.
No, he
He
didn't.
just kept going.
Yeah, right through the barricade. Here's one way to not get a bigger audience. Ronan Farrow went on the Stephen Colbert show on Comedy Central and described his audience as the youth generation. And when Colbert asked him to expand on that, Farrow said that his audience is, quote, strange people who have worked in Afghanistan and at the State Department and now run a TV show. That's the target demo, nerds. So he calls them nerds and strange people, and hopefully that will bring him a bigger audience.
Insult your audience is the way to get more.
So we do it apparently.
Yeah. Maybe I should try that.
Yeah.
Our audience.
Give us a call, dummies.
Yeah. Hey, idiots, why are you watching? Don't you have anything better to do?
Our phone number is 866-55-PRESS.
Why are you listening?
You dweebs.
Why aren't you listening to sports? Jerks. God, what a nut.
And a handful of Idaho hockey fans are suing their local hockey team, the Idaho Steelheads. They play at the CenturyLink Arena in Boise because they found out that a small beer contains the same amount of alcohol or the same amount of liquid as a large beer. What they did is they sell the smaller beers for $4, and they come in a shorter but wider cup. And then they sell the large beers for $7, which come in a taller but skinnier cup. And if you take the small beer and you pour it in the small cup and pour it into the large cup, it's the same amount. It fills it all the way up. Fans took notice. They are now suing the team for damages.
They should.
Absolutely.
Damages.
Yeah.
Hey, man, you messed with my beer. I mean, we're going to court.
How about that? You know,
Isn't that crazy?
It is really crazy. I'm glad somebody discovered it. Too.
Yeah.
Some drunk.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
All right. Hey, good to see you on your local progressive talk radio station. Thanks for being with us this morning. And Paul Ryan, man, I got to tell you, the Republicans, they have hitched their wagon to Paul Ryan's star. And, man, I think they are making a big mistake. First of all, he's a lousy candidate for vice president. Didn't make any difference at all. I think Mitt Romney was probably sorry that he chose him. But, you know, the guy he is worse than Ronald Reagan when it comes to his take on what is needed to get this economy going again, particularly when it comes to helping the poor. It was a couple of weeks ago, remember. So this is building up to something he said yesterday. You won't believe what Paul Ryan said yesterday. But it's in the context of he's coming out with this year's budget with guts every program that helps the poor, the middle class, right? Classic, uncaring, cold-hearted Republican, blame it on the poor and create even more poor. That's the policy. He is the voice and the face of that policy. So a couple of weeks ago, if you remember, on the 50th anniversary of the War on Poverty, Paul Ryan put out this report basically saying Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty was a total failure because there are more poor people today than there were when Lyndon Johnson was president. Yeah, well, first of all, because there are a lot more Americans, number one. Number two, because Republicans have systematically cut all the programs that help the poor. And it's not because the war on poverty is not working. It's just because we're not doing enough to give people a lift up, a hand up, in order to be able to make it in this pretty tough and challenging time. So he was way off on that report. Yesterday, he expands on it and expounded on it on Bill Bennett's radio show yesterday morning. He said, I'm going to sum up here. You'll hear him. Here's the problem with the poor, he says. There are just too many people out there. In fact, he quoted this sociologist, economist, whatever, by the name of Charles Murray, who has been long discredited, who has Charles Murray's philosophy about the poor is, here's the problem. He said, quote, a lot of poor people are just born lazy. Right. Will you start with that racist comment, right? And you know where you end up, right? So this is a guy that Paul Ryan looks to. Well, Paul Ryan goes on Bill Bennett's show yesterday, and basically he says the problem today is there are too many, parentheses, black people in the inner cities who just don't want to work and won't work. That's the problem. That's why there's so many poor people today. That's my translation. Here is Paul Ryan himself. Just listen how wrong he is.
we have got this tailspin of culture in our inner cities in particular, of men not working, and just generations of men not even thinking about working or learning the value and the culture of work. And so there's a real culture problem here that has to be dealt with. Everybody's got to get involved. So this is what we talk about when we talk about civil society. If you're driving from the suburb, to the sports arena downtown by these blighted neighborhoods, you can't just say, I'm paying my taxes, government's going to fix that. You need to get involved. You need to get involved yourself, whether through a good mentor program or some religious charity, whatever it is, to make a difference. And that's how we help resuscitate our culture.
I mean, just tell me what you think about that. 866-55-PRESS. I'll tell you, it makes my blood boil. So he's saying, I'll use Washington, D.C. as an example. Oh, yeah, if you have to drive from McLean or drive from Potomac and drive through southeast Washington or southwest to get to the ballpark. You see all these, you have to drive, lock your doors because you got to drive all this, the neighborhood where some black people live, right? You see all those black people in the street. They're all lazy bums. They're not working. I haven't heard such racist comments since George Wallace. Jesus. I mean, this is a guy, first of all, he is dead wrong about everything he says there, right? Number one, so he says we have to have what he also told Bill Bennett. So the solution is, first of all, I just can't get over this phrase, generations of men who don't care and don't even think about working. Generations of men. I go back to Charles Murray, right? A lot of poor people are born lazy. That's what he's saying, right? So, first of all, work requirements, which he says we need, that's the answer. You can't hand out a welfare check unless you have people that are required to work. Where's he been? That's already the case. That is already the case with every state program and with the federal program. There's no more just handing out checks. This is the old Ronald Reagan myth about welfare queens. If you sign up for the earned income tax credit, you've got to show that you've been out there trying to get a job or that you have a job. Long-term unemployment, work requirement, is all part of it. So we've already done this. The problem is, and this is what really bothers me. So they complain about these people who don't have a job, and then the Republicans have killed every job proposal that President Obama has put forth. They won't extend unemployment insurance. They won't raise the minimum wage. They won't put money into fixing our infrastructure, all those construction jobs that are out there for roads and bridges and whatever. Every single jobs program. So they kill the jobs programs, kill anything to help people who are looking for work and need a little help until they find another job, and then blame them for not having a job.
Those lazy inner city men.
Yeah. I mean, it really is like the kid who kills his parents and then wants sympathy because he's an orphan. Yeah, I mean, God. So this is Paul Ryan. And by the way, also, have you ever heard anything so racist in your life? I mean, he doesn't say black people, but who does he think he's talking about? You know who he's talking about. If he's talking about generations of men in the inner city who are standing on street corners and not working, he's talking about African Americans. It's just outrageous. 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it. Tell me what you think about Paul Ryan and what we can do about it. It's Ronald Reagan lives. 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends, just a little break here and time out to tell you about something very, very important. It's that time again when we turn to you and ask for your help because we wouldn't be here without you. It's so funny. Everywhere I go, people always say, man, you got 3 hours to fill every morning. How do you do it? How do you keep up with all of it? Well, let me tell you, we work hard at it. I mean, we start at the end of every show. The first thing we do, we just sit right down and start planning the next day's show and get a rough outline kind of where we want to go and what guests we might want to have and what we think the big issues are going to be. And then we go out and all day long, we're watching the news, reading the news, looking at the websites, following everything. I'm down at the White House every day at the briefings and keeping on top of things down there. And then we, meantime, Peter and Elisa particularly are on the phone, booking our guests for the next day. We reconvene in a conference call, at 5 o'clock every afternoon and find out what guests we've got and where we think we're going to go the next day in terms of issues and things we want to talk about. We're also watching that evening, and then the next morning before every show, we reconvene again and sit down and put it finally together. And then we're on the air. So, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but we love doing it, and we couldn't do it without you. That's the important thing, because Free Speech TV, no corporate money, no government money. It is all viewer contributions. We work only for you and depend on you and ask you to help us once again as generously as you can. And there's a little incentive to do so. You can go to freespeech.org, make your contribution, freespeech.org. If you can give us $120, that's $10 a month. We will send you a mug, a Bill Press mug, and a pound of coffee from Peregrine Coffee, our favorite coffee shop downstairs in this building, for $240 or $20 a month. From Cowgirl Creamery, the best cheese in the world, believe me, made in California, close to our home in California. A special package from Cowgirl Creamery. For $360 or $30 a month, you'll get the Cowgirl Creamery selection and a Bill Press mug as well. And a very special treat for those who are able to do so and willing to pledge $1,000 of Free Speech TV. You make your way to Washington anytime with a guest. I will take you and your guest out to dinner, some fabulous restaurant in Washington, and invite you in to watch the show the next morning. So I know you're part of the free speech community, or else you wouldn't be watching this morning. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your help in the past. And now please ask you to dig in again. You know how important it is. I know how much you depend on the independent expression of progressive opinion you only get on Free Speech TV. Now's the time to help again, and thank you.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Congresswoman Barbara Leigh really went after Paul Ryan yesterday. She sits on the House Budget Committee. And by the way, Congressman Chris Van Hollen will join us at the top of the next hour with his comments on Paul Ryan's remarks about the problem is that problem with poverty today is that just too many men in our inner city who are born lazy, genetically, well, at least that's what Charles Murray, whom he quotes, says. They're genetically less intelligent. A not so veiled racist attack blaming poverty on people who just don't want to work. Barbara Leigh says, let's be clear. When Mr. Ryan says inner city, when he says culture, these are simply code words for what he really means. Black. Lucy's calling from Beaverton, Oregon. Hey, Lucy, good morning.
Hi, Bill. Good morning to you. Boy, I'll tell you, you got my blood boiling.
Well, he's got my blood boiling, yeah.
Oh, you know what? As we can see from what Hillary Clinton said about Putin's tactics are being very Hitlerian, anybody who says anything or whispers Hitler's name is vilified and said they're crazy and yada, yada, yada. You know, that's dissent-killing rhetoric. But what Paul Ryan, the way he said it, and in fact the way the Republicans do this a lot of times, is they say things like that. You know, Hitler at first installed fascism in Germany. And then when everybody got poor and things were tough and everybody was... You know what he did? He whipped everybody into a frenzy and said, "Oh, it was the Jews. It's the Jews." And then everybody went after the Jews, right? Very happily, I might add. But that's exactly what Paul Ryan's doing. You know, they've offshored our jobs. They've screwed the black community out of education, out of jobs, out of civil rights, out of everything that they could possibly do to continue slavery. And now what they're doing, what Paul Ryan is doing, in effect, is what Hitler did. He's saying, "Oh, you know, it's the Jews, it's the black people."
Yeah, well, I'm not going to use a Hitler analogy because I don't like to use that. I don't like people who do. But I mean, you're right about the fact, and I made that point too. Is he and his fellow Republicans opposed every single jobs program that this president has put forward, and they've done that for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And then we see the results of it with more people in poverty, more people not having a minimum wage. And they blame those people rather than themselves for killing the program. Paul Ryan, more calls coming up.
Bill Press Show.
Hey friends, lots to talk about today, lots going on, and we'll get right back to the news of the day and our Bill Press show this morning in just a second. But first, we'll take a little time out once again to ask for your help for all of us here at Free Speech TV. You know, I don't have to tell you how much, I've told you before, how much we love being with you first thing in the morning, bring you the news of the day. We love the fact that you're with us, but you know, we wouldn't be here without you, and we really do need your help. That's what makes the difference on Free Speech TV. We don't get any corporate money. We don't get any government funding. All of our, we don't get any commercial funding. All of our money, all of our revenue for Free Speech TV comes from you, our viewers. I know you appreciate Free Speech TV, otherwise you wouldn't be watching. You know that you get here totally unfettered, totally independent, just right, straight news of the day with good progressive commentary all day long from me and from Tom Hartman and Stephanie Miller and Amy Goodman, all of our good friends at Free Speech TV. Well, we wouldn't be here without you. It's just as simple as that. You've been very generous in the past. We're very excited that so many of you already, this pledge drive, have stepped up to the plate. We thank you for that, and if you haven't already done so, encourage you to make that big call today to 877-378-8669 and make your pledge. Be as generous as you can to Free Speech TV, just to keep this independent, the one single progressive television network on the air, and that is Free Speech TV. And encourage you to do so. Very, very excited to be able to offer you. If you could just give us $10 a pledge, $10 a month, that's $120 a year. You get a Bill Press Show mug and a pound of coffee from our favorite coffee shop downstairs here in our building. If you can up that to $20 a month and a pledge of $240, which we thank you, you'll love the cheese from Cowgirl Creamery. It comes from a part of Marin County where we live in California. I think it's the best cheese in the entire world. We'll send you a selection of Cowgirl Creamery. And for $360 or $30 a month, you get the Cowgirl Creamery, Cowgirl cheese selection, and the Bill Press mug. That's $30 a month or $360. And then, very, very special, and some of you have signed up for this already, if you can afford to help Free Speech with $1,000 and make your way to Washington, D.C., here's what. We will take you out to dinner at one of our favorite restaurants in Washington and invite you to come here the next morning in studio with us to see the show. That'll be a great deal of fun. Hope you'll take advantage of that. Again, the number to make your pledge is 877-378-8669. We depend on you. Please be as generous as you can. Thank you.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we are. It is 33 minutes after the hour on a Thursday morning, March 13. Coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers. Good men and women of the AFT under President Randy Weingarten, making a difference every day in America's classrooms. You bet. Their website is aft.org. It is the Bill Press Show. We're keying off on Paul Ryan's comments yesterday on the Bill Bennett radio show, basically saying, look, we have killed or cut every single program that would help the poor. And so that means there are more people than ever before. That means we ought to kill more federal programs helping the poor, take more money away from those programs because obviously they're not working. Yeah, they're not working because you are killing them, and you're also killing any jobs proposal that comes along. But Paul Ryan says it's these lazy black people in the cities who don't want to work and won't work. Here he is on Bill Bennett.
We have got this tailspin of culture in our inner cities in particular of men not working and just generations of men not even thinking about working or learning the value and the culture of work. And so there's a real culture problem here that has to be dealt with. Everybody's got to get involved. So this is what we talk about when we talk about civil society. Mm-hmm. If you're driving from the suburb, to the sports arena downtown by these blighted neighborhoods,
that's the problem.
You can't just say, I'm paying my taxes, government's going to fix that. You need to get involved. You need to get involved yourself, whether through a good mentor program or some religious charity, whatever it is, to make a difference. And that's how we help resuscitate our culture.
Yeah, God. As I say, you drive in from the Mansions of Potomac to the Nats Park here in Washington, and you drive through those blighted neighborhoods. Right. So when he talks about blighted neighborhood, he talks about culture, he talks about inner city, he's saying black. He quotes Charles Murray, sociologist, in his comments yesterday. He's always quoting Charles Murray. Charles Murray, who said, he said that African Americans are genetically less intelligent. This is Paul Ryan's mentor. And, quote, a lot of people are born lazy. Paul Ryan. This is the most racist comment I have heard from any politician, as I said, since George Wallace. Robert in Lawrence, South Carolina. Hello, Robert. Thanks for your call.
I won't dispute that a few people are born lazy. With that being said, I'd like for Paul Ryan to open his hands and let's check his palms for calluses.
Yeah. I don't think you'll find any, Robert. I don't think that guy's ever worked a day in his life. Real work, right? Yeah, exactly. Which makes a point that a lot of these people who talk about it's just the problem with these poor people is they just don't want to work. Let's face it, they've never been there.
Right.
They have never had to struggle, and I know Paul Ryan well enough to know he hasn't. Who had to struggle from day to day. They haven't had to struggle to pay all the bills at the end of the month. They haven't had to struggle for trying to find a job in this economy, and then have their unemployment insurance taken away from them by members of Congress who would rather go on Christmas vacation than extend unemployment benefits. They have not been there. They have no clue what that is like.
It is jarring to hear someone who has, a guaranteed pay raise, just about every year, who's got his, living expenses, he's got a guaranteed job.
He makes $175,000 a year for doing nothing.
Right.
Doing nothing. Yeah. And he's blaming these many. Yeah.
But all those lazy inner city men.
Jim is calling from Gary, Indiana. Hello, Jim.
Hey, it's a shame because this overall, this is a pervasive. Here in Indiana, our state legislature is trying to pass legislation that would say that people on welfare have to take drug tests. And my standing is that any of these guys, from Paul Ryan on down, and everyone in between. If drug laws are the way they are, and it's legal for people to take a urine test, then they should have to take drug tests. They should have to take breathalyzers before they vote.
Yeah, I think they should have to take an IQ test before they vote. Some of these people, Jim. Right. No, but, it's us versus them, right? It's always, they've got to find somebody to blame. And, again, this is so Ronald Reagan. All the talk about welfare queens driving Cadillacs and having great big color TVs, which was a big deal then, right? Today be talking about the big flat screen TVs.
Or iPads.
Or iPads. God, man. And they have this
color TVs.
There's this myth, right? That's a problem, and so this solution is make things worse, right? That's a solution.
Make it harder.
Make it harder. Yeah. Don't raise the minimum wage. Don't extend unemployment benefits. Don't have any money out there for no new stimulus. No new money for rebuilding our infrastructure and creating jobs. No. Let's make it worse for them, and then we'll blame them even more. These inner city black people. That's what he's talking about. Absolute racist comments, and ought to be identified as such and condemned as such. And don't sugarcoat it. Don't say, he wasn't talking about blacks. The hell he wasn't. Milton is out in Frankfort, Illinois.
Who could he possibly be talking
Who
about?
else is he talking about? Driving in from the suburbs where the rich white people live into the sports centers, which may be downtown, who you have to drive by. Yeah. Oh, man. Hi, Milton.
Hey, Bill. This is like the new Southern strategy. Just red meat for the base to try to get them out 2014.
Yep.
But it's also a professor who wrote a book saying the new Jim Crow. First you had marijuana locking up blacks with the war on drugs, Now you got this stand your ground law. All you got to do is be seriously afraid of a black man and you can kill him. Just be afraid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's all part of a pattern, Milton, by the same people. Absolutely. And here's the other thing about this, right? Is Paul Ryan, right? He is put forth as the thinking man's Republican. He's the intelligent one, right? He's the leader he's the thoughtful Republican. That's the way they talk about him. He's the chair of the Budget Committee. He puts forth a 240-page document about the war on poverty. Therefore, he must know what he's talking about. He doesn't have a freaking clue. I told you, there's only one good thing about Paul Ryan. He gets his hair cut by the same woman who cuts my hair. Right? That's it. All right? So
he doesn't have, all bad taste.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of changing hairstylists. Just because I don't even want that connection. All I'm saying is, but if you hear Republicans talk about Paul Ryan, they almost worship him. They revere him. He's the chair of the Budget Committee. He's the thinking man's Republican. No, he's not. He's dead wrong about everything, and he's a racist. Dorothy's calling from DeRidder, Louisiana. Hey, Dorothy.
Hello, Paul.
Bill.
Bill, I'm sorry.
Don't confuse Bill with Paul Ryan.
Don't call me Paul Ryan.
I am fired up this morning because how dare Paul Ryan to say that we're lazy. Look, I'm a 70-year-old woman raising 2 grandkids, then came out of retirement, got another full-time job to take care of these kids. Bobby Jenner down here is not doing anything to help me. They was giving me a few food stamps. They took them away. So how dare him to say that we're lazy? I am not lazy. I've been working ever since I was 13 years old. He better get off of his high horses. And I'm fired up and I'm ready to do something about it.
Well, you ought to give him a call to his office, Dorothy. I'll tell you, and you ought to. You are fired up and ready to go, and you ought to be. I mean, basically, he is saying across the board, he is saying African Americans are lazy bums that don't want to work and won't work, and we just got to cut any aid that we're help that we're giving them, and they're won't even go out there and look for a job if they're offered a job. He is just first of all, he's dead wrong. How dare he say something like that and then get away with it? And he's the face of the Republican Party when it comes to poverty programs or budget programs. Jack, boy, I love Dorothy.
Yeah,
I love Dorothy.
fired up.
I'll tell you one thing, man. Paul Ryan better watch out. Dorothy shows up at his office.
Yeah, that's trouble.
He'll go running for help with his tail between his legs. Jack is calling from Bellingham, Washington. Hey, Jack.
Hi there, Bill. Education. Somebody should tell Paul Ryan that he should start sponsoring bills that will provide education so people can rise up and get into better jobs and improve their lives.
Boy, that's the answer. You are absolutely right. You know, Paul Ryan really wants to do something. Why doesn't he do something about inner city schools, right? Or schools in general, just across the board. You're right. That is the ticket. That is absolutely the ticket. Which, by the way, is something President Obama's been talking about and had a group at the White House not so long ago and made that very, very point. Remember, he had the My Brother's Keeper initiative. And the whole thrust of that My Brother's Keeper was to help young black kids get in school, stay in school, and get a job.
Yeah.
You know, and he's sort of made that his mission. We're going to jump over and talk to Zoe Carpenter from The Nation here in just a second, but one more comment on that, because it's Paul Ryan. And remember, again, Chris Van Hollen's going to join us at the top of the next hour. Be sure to be there for that with his comments. He is fired up and ready to go on Paul Ryan as well. And Chris Van Hollen is the ranking Democrat, the guy that sits alongside of Paul Ryan on the House Budget Committee. Can't wait to talk to Chris Van Hollen about this. Tom out in Chicago on the great WCPT. Hello, Tom.
Yes, I'd just like to bring up the comment that really Paul Ryan comes from one of the richest families in Wisconsin.
Yep.
And he used his dad's Social Security to pay for his college, which his family could have paid for very easily without that.
I didn't know that. I know he comes from a very wealthy family.
Oh, that came out a long time ago during his run for vice president.
You know, and so there it is, Tom, and yet he's pontificating on the problem with people who happen to be living in poverty, right? Doesn't have a clue. Thank you all for the calls. Great calls on this subject. It's got you're as fired up as I am about it and as angry as I am about it. Paul Ryan, more talk about that with Chris Van Hollen when we come back. Zoe Carpenter from The Nation magazine here on this Thursday edition of the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just a little break here and time out to tell you about something very, very important. It's that time again when we turn to you and ask for your help, because we wouldn't be here without you. You know, it's so funny. Everywhere I go, people always say, man, you got 3 hours to fill every morning. How do you do it? How do you keep up with all of it? You know, well, let me tell you, we work hard at it. I mean, we start at the end of every show. The first thing we do, we just sit right down and start planning the next day's show and get a rough outline kind of where we want to go and what guests we might want to have and what we think the big issues are going to be. And then we go out and all day long, you know, we're watching the news, reading the news, looking at the websites, following everything. I'm down at the White House every day at the briefings and keeping on top of things down there. And then we, meantime, Peter and Elisa particularly are on the phone, booking our guests for the next day. We reconvene in a conference call at 5 o'clock every afternoon and find out what guests we've got and where we think we're going to go the next day in terms of issues and things we want to talk about. We're also watching that evening, and then the next morning before every show, we reconvene again and sit down and say and put it finally together. And then we're on the air. So, you know, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but we love doing it, and we couldn't do it without you. That's the important thing, because Free Speech TV, no corporate money, no government money. It is all viewer contributions. We work only for you and depend on you and ask you to help us once again as generously as you can. And there's a little incentive to do so. You can go to freespeech.org, make your contribution, freespeech.org. If you can give us $120, that's $10 a month. We will send you a mug, a Bill Press mug, and a pound of coffee from Peregrine Coffee, our favorite coffee shop downstairs in this building, for $240 or $20 a month from Cowgirl Creamery, the best cheese in the world. Believe me, made in California, close to our home in California. A special package from Cowgirl Creamery for $360 or $30 a month. You'll get the Cowgirl Creamery selection and a Bill Press mug as well. And a very special treat for those who are able to do so and willing to pledge $1,000 of Free Speech TV. You make your way to Washington anytime with a guest. I will take you and your guest out to dinner, some fabulous restaurant in Washington, and invite you in to watch the show the next morning. So I know you're part of the free speech community, or else you wouldn't be watching this morning. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your help in the past. And now please ask you to dig in again. You know how important it is. I know how much you depend on the independent expression of progressive opinion you only get on Free Speech TV. Now's the time to help again, and thank you.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour. I am, on a Thursday morning, I have to tell you, I am totally intrigued by this missing plane, this Malaysian plane. I know it's not the topic we're going to talk to Zoe Carpenter about, but I just saw the latest is they're now reporting that this plane, after the last contact with the plane, it flew for 4 more hours. 4 more hours. My flight from Las Vegas to Washington was only 3 hours and 52 minutes, by the way. So you can cover a lot of territory.
Yeah.
In 4 hours.
Yeah.
Right? Unbelievable. The fact that on this planet today, with all the technology we have and the satellites we have and the communication equipment we have and the security we have, you could lose a freaking plane.
How do you lose that?
Commercial. I mean, a little Piper Cup I could see.
Right.
A commercial plane with 270 people on board. Yeah. Unbelievable. Wow. That is as unbelievable to me as the fact that the CIA is spying on members of the United States Senate. At least they're accused of it, and I believe every word Dianne Feinstein says about it. Zoe Carpenter has been writing about this for The Nation magazine, along with George Zornick whose piece I read last night? Everybody.
John Nichols, our good friend.
John Nichols has been writing about it as well. And Zoe Carpenter joins us on our news line this morning. Hi, Zoe. Good morning.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. So, what is the next step in this? What happens now that Senator Feinstein has charged the CIA with, spying basically on Senate staffers and hacking into their computers?
Well, she's referred the matter to the Department of Justice, which is also looking into allegations from the CIA itself that the Senate staffers, in fact, were the ones who hacked into the computer system.
Yeah, so both of them accuse the other, right, of breaking the law.
Right. It's a rather extraordinary circumstance. There is some speculation that the CIA's accusations are meant to chill the Senate investigation and that it's a kind of fear tactic. So the Department of Justice is going to take steps to look into these things. That may take a while. I would expect we'd see some more action in Congress, maybe some hearings. There are calls for a full-scale investigation like what we found in the 1970s with the Church Committee to really look at the full scope of our intelligence community and their activities and separation of powers, because coupling this scandal with the NSA, it seems that there's much to be concerned about when it comes to the intelligence community.
Amen to that. Absolutely. You put them together. The problem is that Senator Feinstein has been the chief defender of the NSA and the CIA. And I would say, at least until this, she would have probably blocked any full investigation into our intelligence agencies. Do you think she would support that today?
I'm not sure. I think that this has really changed the game when it comes to critiques, congressional critiques and oversight of the intelligence community. It is a little bit ironic that Feinstein cares about spying on Congress more than she seems to be concerned about the NSA's surveillance of American citizens. So I can't speak for her. I'm not sure what she would support at this point, but it is very significant when someone who has been so close with the intelligence community is driven to speak out so publicly in
Yeah.
an unannounced and unexpected floor speech.
Right. No, they they spied on one person too far, perhaps, when they got to Senator Feinstein and her staff. But here's, I guess, my question that I think a lot of the American people are asking too. If the NSA, CIA are spying on every single American, every single phone call, every single email, if they're spying on foreign leaders, friends of ours like Angela Merkel and others, right? Why wouldn't they be spying on members of the Senate? Why would we think that they would, put anybody, aside from their spying activities? I think it follows. Go ahead.
Right. I think that's a great question. And the larger question is whether Congress can perform effective oversight. And if the people Congress is supposed to be overseeing, if those agencies are actually the ones who are overseeing Congress, we have a serious crisis in terms of the separation of powers.
A serious constitutional crisis, as Senator Feinstein said. Absolutely. In fact, I got to tell you, if I were President Obama, I wouldn't be too confident they're not spying on him. Why not?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I bet I would be willing to bet they're spying on, if not the president himself, members of the cabinet and top White House staff. These guys are totally out of control. Zoe, you and I and others have been saying that for a long time, and now maybe with Senator Feinstein on our side, we can get some action on this. Thanks, Zoe. Keep up your good work at The Nation.
Thanks for having me again.
All right. Glad that she was on here from The Nation, thenation.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends, just a little break here and time out to tell you about something very, very important. It's that time again when we turn to you and ask for your help, because we wouldn't be here without you. It's so funny. Everywhere I go, people always say, man, you got 3 hours to fill every morning. How do you do it? How do you keep up with all of it? Well, let me tell you, we work hard at it. I mean, we start at the end of every show. The first thing we do, we just sit right down and start planning the next day's show and get a rough outline kind of where we want to go and what guests we might want to have and what we think the big issues are going to be. And then we go out and all day long, we're watching the news, reading the news, looking at the websites, following everything. I'm down at the White House every day at the briefings and keeping on top of things down there. And then we, meantime, Peter and Elisa particularly are on the phone, booking our guests for the next day. We reconvene in a conference call at 5 o'clock every afternoon and find out what guests we've got and where we think we're going to go the next day in terms of issues and things we want to talk about. We're also watching that evening, and then the next morning before every show, we reconvene again and sit down and put it finally together. And then we're on the air. So, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but we love doing it, and we couldn't do it without you. That's the important thing, because Free Speech TV, no corporate money, no government money. It is all viewer contributions. We work only for you and depend on you and ask you to help us once again as generously as you can. And there's a little incentive to do so. You can go to freespeech.org, make your contribution, freespeech.org. If you can give us $120, that's $10 a month. We will send you a mug, a Bill Press mug, and a pound of coffee from Peregrine Coffee, our favorite coffee shop downstairs in this building, for $240 or $20 a month. From Cowgirl Creamery, the best cheese in the world, believe me, made in California, close to our home in California. A special package from Cowgirl Creamery. For $360 or $30 a month, you'll get the Cowgirl Creamery selection and a Bill Press mug as well. And a very special treat for those who are able to do so and willing to pledge $1,000 of Free Speech TV. You make your way to Washington anytime with a guest. I will take you and your guest out to dinner, some fabulous restaurant in Washington, and invite you in to watch the show the next morning. So I know you're part of the free speech community, or else you wouldn't be watching this morning. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your help in the past. And now please ask you to dig in again. You know how important it is. I know how much you depend on the independent expression of progressive opinion you only get on Free Speech TV. Now's the time to help again, and thank you.
The Bill Press Show.
Chris Van Anders from the ACLU will be here in the next top of the next hour.
Chris Anders
and Chris Van Hollen from
We'll just call that
Congress.
segment the Chris Van Anders segment.
The
I like
Chris
that.
Show.
Yeah.
All right. What do you got, Peter?
Quick news, Bill. I know you're going to be very heartbroken. Sad news. Yesterday, it was announced that Jan Brewer, the governor of Arizona, will not be seeking another term. She's going to retire at the end of this term. So farewell, Jan Brewer. There's been a lot of speculation about whether or not she was going to seek a third term in office. She is not.
I think it's no exaggeration to say she is the single worst governor of all 50 states, Jan Brewer, right?
That makes sense.
Just totally incompetent. So goodbye, good riddance, and people of Arizona deserve better.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey friends, lots to talk about today, lots going on, and we'll get right back to the news of the day and our Bill Press Show this morning in just a second. But first, we'll take a little time out once again to ask for your help for all of us here at Free Speech TV. You know, I don't have to tell you how much, I've told you before, how much we love being with you first thing in the morning, bring you the news of the day. We love the fact that you're with us, but you know, we wouldn't be here without you, and we really do need your help. That's what makes the difference on Free Speech TV. We don't get any corporate money. We don't get any government funding. All of our, we don't get any commercial funding. All of our money, all of our revenue for Free Speech TV comes from you, our viewers. I know you appreciate Free Speech TV, otherwise you wouldn't be watching. You know that you get here totally unfettered, totally independent, just right, straight news of the day with good progressive commentary all day long from me and from Tom Hartman and Stephanie Miller and Amy Goodman, all of our good friends at Free Speech TV. Well, we wouldn't be here without you. It's just as simple as that. You've been very generous in the past. We're very excited that so many of you already, this pledge drive, have stepped up to the plate. We thank you for that, and if you haven't already done so, encourage you to make that big call today to 877-378-8669 and make your pledge. Be as generous as you can to Free Speech TV, just to keep this independent, the one single progressive television network on the air, and that is Free Speech TV. And encourage you to do so. Very, very excited to be able to offer you. If you could just give us $10 a pledge, $10 a month, that's $120 a year. You get a Bill Press Show mug and a pound of coffee from our favorite coffee shop downstairs here in our building. If you can up that to $20 a month and a pledge of $240, which we thank you, you'll love the cheese from Cowgirl Creamery. It comes from a part of Marin County where we live in California. I think it's the best cheese in the entire world. We'll send you a selection of Cowgirl Creamery. And for $360 or $30 a month, you get the Cowgirl Creamery, Cowgirl cheese selection, and the Bill Press mug. That's $30 a month or $360. And then, very, very special, and some of you have signed up for this already, if you can afford to help Free Speech with $1,000 and make your way to Washington, D.C., here's what. We will take you out to dinner at one of our favorite restaurants in Washington and invite you to come here the next morning in studio with us to see the show. That'll be a great deal of fun. Hope you'll take advantage of that. Again, the number to make your pledge is 877-378-8669. We depend on you. Please be as generous as you can. Thank you.
In 1920s America, the Great Depression effectively erased consumer demand. Struggling manufacturers needed new ways to get people buying again. Innovative production processes like stamping and use of molds allowed them to use new materials for their designs. Products using vinyl, chrome, aluminium and plywood began appearing. American industrial designers began introducing streamlined, efficient shapes that shouted progress. Bel Geddes pioneered what we now refer to as utilitarian art. Things that had little reason to look sleek, now all of a sudden did. At the 1939 World Fair, featuring Bell Geddes' immensely popular Futurama exhibit, a new era of American industrial design proudly claimed to be building the world of tomorrow. Americans found great positivity in these futuristic forms. Yay. Things were looking up. American industrial designers realised that by making objects look great, people simply wanted them more. From cars to kitchen appliances, the most influential society on earth was spending money again. Mass consumption had arrived. Advertisers finally had lots to talk about. Personal taste could be expressed through the things you bought. Style became equally as important as function. Chair designers like Eames and Saarinen didn't just design seating, they created desirable lifestyles. People behind the product suddenly were stars. Everyone wanted to know who they were. Raymond Loewy was one of the shining lights of American industrial design. His face ended up on every coffee table in the nation. Toothpaste packaging promised whiter teeth. Washing powder packaging promised whiter whites. Who knew such simple household objects would shape the tastes and ambitions of an entire society? American industrial design improved America, functionally, culturally and intellectually, and exported it around the globe.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
From Chicago to Rochester, New York, yet another winter storm sweeping across the country. Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, March 13. This is The Bill Press Show. Good to be back with you. Thanks to Peter Ogburn for filling in for the last 3 days. I am back from Las Vegas, right in the heart of the action again with a lot going on here. Thank you for joining us on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide and on Free Speech TV. It is good to have you with us. Chris Anders from the ACLU is here in studio with us to talk about the latest flap Senator Feinstein accusing the CIA of spying on members of Congress. But first, the other big news story we want to get to right away is Congressman Paul Ryan, chair of the House Budget Committee, generally, put forth by Republicans as their leader on budget, certainly on budget issues. The thoughtful Republican on the Bill Bennett radio show yesterday said that the problem with poverty is that there are too many people, I'm paraphrasing here, too many people in the inner city standing around on street corners who just don't want to work and never will. Congressman Chris Van Hollen, our good friend, who's the ranking Democrat on the House Budget Committee, joins us on our news line this morning to talk about the Paul Ryan comments. Good morning, Congressman. Good to have you with us.
Good morning, Bill. It's great to be with you this morning.
So let's start, if we can, Congressman. For all of our viewers and all of our listeners may not have heard Paul Ryan's comments yesterday. He's appearing on the Bill Bennett radio show, and he says, here's the problem with why we still have so many poor people in this country today. Here's Congressman Ryan.
We have got this tailspin of culture in our inner cities in particular of men not working, and just generations of men not even thinking about working or learning the value and the culture of work. And so there's a real culture problem here that has to be dealt with. Everybody's got to get involved. So this is what we talk about when we talk about civil society. If you're driving from the suburb, to the sports arena downtown by these blighted neighborhoods, you can't just say, I'm paying my taxes, government's going to fix that. You need to get involved. You need to get involved yourself, whether through a good mentor program or some religious charity, whatever it is, to make a difference. And that's how we help resuscitate our culture.
There you go, Congressman. We got so many poor people because they just don't want to work, right?
Well, Bill, listen, that last part of what Paul Ryan said is something I agree with. We should all get involved. The problem is the way Paul Ryan and his Republican colleagues on Capitol Hill have been getting involved is in a budget that slashes opportunities for people to help lift themselves out of poverty. And Paul Ryan's comments reflect a fundamental wrong diagnosis of this problem. The fundamental issue here is a lack of opportunity, a lack of job opportunities, educational opportunities, rather than this lack of motivation. And to add sort of a cruel twist to this, because the Republicans and Paul Ryan misdiagnosed the problem, they really come up with solutions that would make the problem worse, because they say, here's the problem. People are not motivated to work, and if you provide a little bit of food and nutrition, or if you have a Head Start program, that actually further reduces the motivation to work. So, gee whiz, we got to help these people climb out of poverty by cutting the very ladders to opportunity that will be needed to lift people out of poverty.
So if it's raising the minimum wage, right, or extending unemployment benefits, or providing the opportunity for Head Start for the kids, or food stamps, right, every one of those programs, they'll cut the programs and then blame people for still being stuck in poverty.
Right. In fact, their argument is they're doing a good thing, and that, in fact, that they're doing people a favor. It's a very paternalistic sort of approach, which is that, look, we know you'll be better off if you don't have a Head Start program in your neighborhood, because, you're not motivated to work, and that'll help, motivate you to work, even though we know right now there are 3 people looking for every 1 job in the country. We know the disparity in income leads to huge inequalities in educational opportunity. And so it really is sort of, it's all rhetoric in terms of trying to suggest that Republicans have a solution to this issue, when in fact what they're going to do is make the problems a lot worse through their budget.
Congressman, when you hear Paul Ryan talk about inner city culture problem, do you have any doubt that he's talking about black people? Let's just be honest.
Well, look, I'm going to leave other people to interpret the comments. I think that whoever Paul Ryan's playing to in the comments, whoever it may be, the diagnosis is just wrong, because, again, the entire theory here is that people prefer not to work. Whoever it is he's referring to, he's saying, they've made a choice not to work, rather than the real issue here, which is lack of job opportunities, lack of educational opportunities. And in fact, as I say, it's sort of a sinister twist, because the argument that Paul Ryan and Republicans are making is not only that certain groups of people don't want to work, but these government efforts to create opportunity actually create even less motivation to work. So by God, let's just get rid of them.
Sure.
right? And that's why it is a really, I think, it's a scary approach, because it by misdiagnosing the problem, they're going to make the situation much worse for people in poverty and people who, we're trying to help provide with greater opportunity.
Just one last question, Congressman. There's no doubt, is in your mind, that this is the prelude to the Republican budget that he's going to that he'll soon be putting forth. Correct? I mean, his comments a couple of weeks ago and his comments yesterday, he's paving the way for draconian cuts in their budget.
Well, that's right. And what we've said is, look, if Paul Ryan and Republicans are seriously interested in addressing the issues of poverty, we're, of course, willing to work with them. I mean, obviously, we can make improvements in how we address this issue. But if all this rhetoric is simply a Trojan horse for a budget that is going to slash investments and opportunities for people, then we're going to fight them tooth and nail. And I fear that this is all a prelude to a budget that's going to slash the social safety net, undermine important investments to provide people with greater opportunities. We will see, but if the past is prelude and last year's budget is any sign, then it will simply be more of the same, which is doubling down on the Mitt Romney comment about, the 47%, right?
Right.
And that's where I fear this is heading. I hope it's not, but that's my concern.
Well, Congressman, we're glad you are in the position you are in, ranking Democrat on the House Budget Committee. Paul Ryan, he's got some stiff competition there, thanks to you. Thanks so much, Congressman, for your time this morning. Go get him.
Good to be with you.
All right, Chris Van Hollen, a great friend from Montgomery County, chair of the House Budget Committee. So we got that big issue to deal with. And then we've got Senator Dianne Feinstein, my friend, my senator from California, on the floor of the Senate. Chris Andrews here from the ACLU, Senior Legislative Counsel, who's accusing the CIA of spying on members of her committee, her staff of her committee, who were investigating the CIA.
That's right.
And the CIA spying on them. Is she right?
Well, we think so. And she went to the floor. It was a really amazing speech. I mean, there aren't that many speeches on the Senate floor anymore that are riveting. They're kind of like must-watch TV if you happen to be watching C-SPAN at 9 a.m. And you could almost see the Constitution live playing out in front of you because this was really Senator Feinstein standing there reclaiming the Congress's role in the system of checks and balances. And it's been a broken system for 12 years now, and it was almost like a wake-up call that it's time for Congress to push back and to try to exercise some control over the CIA that's been totally out of control.
So just it's a long, complicated story, but I'm just trying to simplify it. So President Bush authorized torture.
That's right.
And when the Democrats took over, they said, we're going to investigate exactly what was going on, right, on this enhanced interrogation techniques.
Yep.
And they start doing that. And they had to and the videotapes have been destroyed. So they have to review documents. And the CIA says, we'll put all the documents down here in Virginia, right?
And we'll dedicate this computer system, a standalone computer,
which is
to you.
Totally secure.
And we're not touching it.
We're not touching it. So the staff go down there, they look at the documents, and they're working on these computers. And then they discover that documents that they think they have in their computer that they've are suddenly missing. And they realize the CIA has... this is the allegation, at any rate, has hacked into their computers and destroyed some of those documents that they're supposed to be investigating.
That's right. And this was a mammoth commitment by Senator Feinstein and her committee. There were 6 million pages of documents that the committee staff reviewed. They wrote a 6,500-page report. There are 15,000 footnotes, which is kind of my favorite because it's so amazing. And in doing these...
How many? 15,000?
15,000 footnotes.
And 6,500...
6,500 pages and 6 million pages of documents that they reviewed. But the CIA put some of these documents on, and the document that actually is in dispute now is CIA Director Leigh Panetta, when he took over after President Obama won office, he ordered his own review of what took place with the torture program under President Bush. And so there were these memos that were produced that are very critical of the CIA. They were produced by the CIA, critical of the CIA, and they ended up reaching apparently the same conclusions that Senator Feinstein and her committee reached, which was this was a terrible program. It was an illegal program. There was lying to Congress. There was lying to the Justice Department going on by the CIA, and that it didn't work. Like they got no good information anyway out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so these secret internal memos were put onto the committee's computer, the computer that was being used by the committee. They had access to it. Then it seems like the CIA realized that these documents were being used and accessed.
Panetta.
They're called the Panetta memos, I guess.
Yeah.
And then they took them down. And it seems like they took them down. Then they may have put them back up, and then they were going to take. Then they took them down again, and so what Senator Feinstein eventually realized is that the CIA had been basically spying on them. That they had been monitoring the use of computers and spying on the very investigators that are charged under the Constitution with keeping a check on the CIA and on the executive branch, and this
is a constitutional crisis. I don't mean to overplay it, but it really is.
It
right?
is, and then here's an amazing little twist.
The separation of powers has just gone out the window here.
Yeah, and here's an amazing little twist. So the Inspector General, which is kind of an internal watchdog at the CIA, sent a criminal referral to the Justice Department about the CIA's monitoring of these computers, and was believed that there may have been a crime committed, so they turned it over to the CIA.
Crime committed by
the CIA. So that news story broke, and within a couple days, the CIA acting general counsel submitted his own criminal referral to the Justice Department, trying to get the Justice Department to criminally go after Senator Feinstein's committee staff. And then one of the things that Senator Feinstein brought up on the floor of the Senate was this guy who's the acting general counsel was the lawyer for the part of the CIA, the National Counterterrorism Center, during the Bush administration, during the entire period that torture was being used. So this is basically like a holdover, career person, holdover, and he's mentioned 1,600 times by name in the Senate committee's torture report. So this is a guy who's beyond up to his eyeballs on torture. Is somehow or other got himself made acting general counsel of the CIA, and now he's still trying to hide what the CIA did, and he's trying to use the Justice Department to bully the Senate committee.
So you got Senator Feinstein's staff is going to justice saying we think the CIA broke the law by spying on us and hacking into our computers, and the CIA is going to the Justice Department saying we think the Senator Feinstein's staff stole documents from us, right?
Yeah. Well, it's almost. I mean, the only thing that's different there is that it was actually the CIA Inspector General is reporting on the CIA itself. So it's a real.
Let me ask this, Chris, and then we have to take a quick break and come back, and your call's welcome on this and invited on this, 866-55. It is unbelievable. But is there any doubt in your mind that, I just think Americans just have to think of this. Let's just look. What does your common sense tell you, right? If they were spying on every American's phone call and every American's email, and if they're spying on Angela Merkel and all these foreign leaders.
That's right.
Of course they're spying on the members of the Congress, right?
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah. Well, Senator Feinstein on the Senate floor basically said, look, she thinks the separation of powers under the Constitution was violated. The Fourth Amendment was violated. A criminal statute dealing with computer fraud she believes was violated. And then the most amazing thing she brought up was she said that there's a presidential executive order, which has been longstanding, that prohibits the CIA from spying within the United States itself. She believes that may have been violated as well.
Right. CIA out of control. We've been telling you that for a long time.
Yep.
Now Senator Feinstein is on board. Chris Andrews here from the ACLU. I'll have a quick time for when we come back, wrap it up and take a call at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends, just a little break here and time out to tell you about something very, very important. It's that time again when we turn to you and ask for your help because we wouldn't be here without you. You know, it's so funny. Everywhere I go, people always say, man, you got 3 hours to fill every morning. How do you do it? How do you keep up with all of it? You know, well, let me tell you, we work hard at it. I mean, we start at the end of every show. The first thing we do, we just sit right down and start planning the next day's show and get a rough outline kind of where we want to go and what guests we might want to have and what we think the big issues are going to be. And then we go out and all day long, you know, we're watching the news, reading the news, looking at the websites, following everything. I'm down at the White House every day at the briefings and keeping on top of things down there. And then we, meantime, Peter and Elisa particularly are on the phone, booking our guests for the next day. We reconvene in a conference call at 5 o'clock every afternoon and find out what guests we've got and where we think we're going to go the next day in terms of issues and things we want to talk about. We're also watching that evening, and then the next morning before every show, we reconvene again and sit down and say and put it finally together. And then we're on the air. So, you know, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but we love doing it, and we couldn't do it without you. That's the important thing, because Free Speech TV, no corporate money, no government money. It is all viewer contributions. We work only for you and depend on you and ask you to help us once again as generously as you can. And there's a little incentive to do so. You can go to freespeech.org, make your contribution, freespeech.org. If you can give us $120, that's $10 a month. We will send you a mug, a Bill Press mug, and a pound of coffee from Peregrine Coffee, our favorite coffee shop downstairs in this building, for $240 or $20 a month. From Cowgirl Creamery, the best cheese in the world, believe me, made in California, close to our home in California. A special package from Cowgirl Creamery. For $360 or $30 a month, you'll get the Cowgirl Creamery selection and a Bill Press mug as well. And a very special treat for those who are able to do so and willing to pledge $1,000 of Free Speech TV. You make your way to Washington anytime with a guest. I will take you and your guest out to dinner, some fabulous restaurant in Washington, and invite you in to watch the show the next morning. So I know you're part of the free speech community, or else you wouldn't be watching this morning. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your help in the past. And now please ask you to dig in again. You know how important it is. I know how much you depend on the independent expression of progressive opinion you only get on Free Speech TV. Now's the time to help again, and thank you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go. Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan joins us in the next half hour. Chris Andrews here right now from ACLU, ACLU.org. They are all over the story, have been for a long time. So, Chris, I guess I have to ask you, Given the fact that that Senator Feinstein has been the chief defender of the intelligence agencies, NSA and CIA, when they were spying on us, now that they're spying on her, she's pissed off. What do you think can come out of this? We just have about 45 seconds.
Well, look, what we hope comes out of this is a realization by Congress that they have to step up to the plate, that they have a role under the Constitution as part of the checks and balances. Part of the reason the CIA is out of control is that it's an executive branch, a White House and CIA that have no checks on them. The judiciary end of the branch, the courts, basically have taken themselves out of the picture. Mm-hmm. The Congress has let the CIA and the NSA and other intelligence agencies do what they want. It's a role of Congress to step up, to be part of that system of checks and balances. Senator Feinstein, it looks like this week, started the process of reasserting that role. And it would be a good thing for the country if Congress does that.
We need another Frank Church.
We do.
We need another Frank Church
really
investigation. And maybe Senator Feinstein's the one to lead it up. Chris, thanks so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks for your good work.
Thanks.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends, lots to talk about today, lots going on, and we'll get right back to the news of the day and our Bill Press Show this morning in just a second. But first, I want to take a little time out once again to ask for your help for all of us here at Free Speech TV. You know, I don't have to tell you how much, I've told you before, how much we love being with you first thing in the morning, bring you the news of the day. We love the fact that you're with us, but you know we wouldn't be here without you, and we really do need your help. That's what makes the difference on Free Speech TV. We don't get any corporate money. We don't get any government funding. All of our, we don't get any commercial funding. All of our money, all of our revenue for Free Speech TV comes from you, our viewers. I know you appreciate Free Speech TV. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching. You know that you get here totally unfettered, totally independent, just right, straight news of the day with good progressive commentary all day long from me and from Tom Hartman and Stephanie Miller and Amy Goodman, all of our good friends at Free Speech TV. Well, we wouldn't be here without you. It's just as simple as that. You've been very generous in the past. We're very excited that so many of you already, this pledge drive, have stepped up to the plate. We thank you for that, and if you haven't already done so, I encourage you to make that big call today to 877-378-8669 and make your pledge. Be as generous as you can to Free Speech TV, just to keep this independent, the one single progressive television network on the air, and that is Free Speech TV. And encourage you to do so. Very, very excited to be able to offer you. If you could just give us $10, pledge $10 a month, that's $120 a year. You get a Bill Press Show mug and a pound of coffee from our favorite coffee shop downstairs here in our building. If you can up that to $20 a month and a pledge of $240, which we thank you, you'll love the cheese from Cowgirl Creamery. It comes from a part of Marin County where we live in California. I think it's the best cheese in the entire world. We'll send you a selection of Cowgirl Creamery. And for $360 or $30 a month, you get the Cowgirl Creamery, Cowgirl cheese selection, and the Bill Press mug. That's $30 a month or $360. And then, very, very special, and some of you have signed up for this already, if you can afford to help Free Speech with $1,000 and make your way to Washington, D.C., here's what. We will take you out to dinner at one of our favorite restaurants in Washington and invite you to come here the next morning in studio with us to see the show. That'll be a great deal of fun. Hope you'll take advantage of that. Again, the number to make your pledge is 877-378-8669. We depend on you. Please be as generous as you can. Thank you.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 33 minutes after the hour, The Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide and on Free Speech TV. Coming to you live from our nation's capital here in our studio on Capitol Hill, brought to you today by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. All the good men and women of the Teamsters Union under President Jim Hoffa. We all live better because of their good work, and you can find out more about what they're up to at their website, www.teamster.org. Believe it or not, here we are already, March 13. Congress still has done nothing about extending unemployment benefits for the long-term unemployed, despite the efforts of some good Democrats to try to get some action on that, led by, among others, Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan, representing the 5th District of Michigan, joining us in studio this morning. Congressman, it's good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be back.
Thanks for coming back in. I'm sure you've been hard at work at the issues of the day.
I wish there were more to show for it, but yes, we are hard at work.
Lights. Here's my car. Lights went out in the Capitol last night. Did anybody notice?
I was going to say, it was, if ever there were a metaphor, it was what happened last night.
Yeah, right.
There's no power in the Capitol. I feel that way very often.
There's no power. There's no leadership. There's no action.
Right.
Yeah, because the wrong people are in charge. I got to start out, Congressman, with the chair of the House Budget Committee yesterday, Paul Ryan, who believes and preaches that the war on poverty was a failure because there are still poor people out there. Duh, right? Yeah.
I mean, it says a lot about the perception and the sort of perspective that many on the Republican side bring to this whole conversation. Number one, I wish we had had a war on poverty. We had a series of battles, but we had far too many retreats. When Lyndon Johnson articulated the war on poverty in, 1964, 1965, had we maintained the effort, not gone through a whole series, think about the 1980s, a whole series of initiatives to really undermine the safety net, maybe we would have been able to be more successful. But the truth of the matter is, we've had success. We have lifted many people out of poverty. One of the things that we are working on right now is
Social Security,
Medicare,
Medicaid.
but even unemployment, even federal unemployment.
Right.
It's kept a lot of people out of poverty.
So yesterday, he is on a show on the same time as we are. The Bill Bennett, conservative Bill Bennett, former Secretary of Education, his radio show, and he says, now, here's the problem. The problem basically is lazy inner city men who just don't want to work. But I don't want to put words in his mouth. Let Paul Ryan do it. Listen up, Congressman, get your take on the other side.
We have got this tailspin of culture in our inner cities in particular of men not working and just generations of men not even thinking about working or learning the value and the culture of work. And so there's a real culture problem here that has to be dealt with. Everybody's got to get involved. So this is what we talk about when we talk about civil society. If you're driving from the suburb, to the sports arena downtown by these blighted neighborhoods, you can't just say, I'm paying my taxes, government's going to fix that. You need to get involved. You need to get involved yourself, whether through a good mentor program or some religious charity, whatever it is, to make a difference. And that's how we help resuscitate our culture.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we all should get involved. But the idea of blaming it on generations of men standing around the street corners who just don't want to work.
Right. I mean, it takes me to a conversation that I had about 6 months ago with a group of 10 and 11-year-old kids in one of the inner city neighborhoods in my hometown of Flint. They have all the optimism, all the energy you could ever imagine. it's not. These kids are not born lazy, as was referred to in some of the commentary around Mr. Ryan's statement. They are in a situation where there are no ladders of opportunity for them. You know, all these kids, they have the same capabilities when they're born. But if you're in one of those inner city neighborhoods, we have to ask ourselves, how is it that we allow that condition to exist that is so depressing and provides so little opportunity? And it's a reflection or a manifestation of bad public policy at the federal level, state level, that we allow those communities to deteriorate, and then sit back and, as Paul Ryan is doing, sort of meditate on how it is that these young people have very little opportunity and are not able to find a decent job. They're consigned to going to schools that are substandard with very little technology, and the walls are falling around them. You live in housing which is surrounded by vacant and abandoned blight, have infrastructure that's crumbling, have virtually no new reinvestment in their neighborhood, and then it's their fault that they don't have an opportunity to fully participate in the economy. No, Mr. Ryan, have a look in the mirror. It's federal policy and other policy that has caused this situation.
Yeah, and then look at, as you alluded to earlier, so they won't raise the minimum wage. They won't extend unemployment insurance. They cut food stamps. They cut Head Start. They cut all these programs.
Training.
They cut a job training.
Right.
They oppose every jobs proposal that has come up here. The stimulus, none of them voted for it. You go on, and then they say it's their fault that they don't have jobs.
Right. I mean, they should embrace, and the president proposed it, Project Rebuild. You want to do something about the situation in these communities? The president proposed a robust urban reinvestment strategy. If he's honestly concerned about the lives and the trajectory of inner city youth who become the young males that he's referring to, I mean, I will stipulate to the fact that there are far too many young males in America's cities who don't have work. Let's just acknowledge that's the case.
Yeah.
How they got there is if somehow they have made a conscious choice that, life's better standing here on the street corner than it could be, being involved in some meaningful work.
It's not that they don't want a job or that they don't want a paycheck, right? Or they don't want a better life.
But just think how cynical and condescending that sort of a comment is.
I would also say how racist that sort of a
there's
comment
no question.
Because when he's talking about men, culture, inner city culture, the whole thing, I mean, those are code words. As Congresswoman Barbara Leigh said yesterday, those are code words for black people.
Well, and here's the thing. It's so cynical that not only is it a demonstration of a complete misunderstanding of the lives of the people that he's referring to, but it's also intended to paint a picture of everybody who might receive any sort of federal support for happen to be down on their luck, unemployment, whatever it might be, SNAP benefits, to paint a picture that engenders in the listener or in the viewer certain connotations which make it very difficult for them to relate to the condition that those people are in. I mean, Ronald Reagan was a master at
welfare
this.
queens.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We mentioned a little earlier, one of the programs that they have refused to support, and this is something you've been taking the lead on, is extending unemployment insurance for the long-term unemployed, which, by the way, already includes a work requirement.
Includes a work requirement.
Which he says, this is the answer. We have to have a work requirement for all these programs. Doesn't he realize they already exist?
And this is for people who are seeking work, too.
Yeah.
This is not for those whom honestly I've never met, but the description of somebody sort of sitting at home on the couch receiving extended unemployment benefits, first of all, it's fallacy. You can't do that. You can't live for the 37 weeks or additional time that you'd get out of unemployment and then just sort of click it into gear and say, okay, now I'm going to go look for a job. Every single person, and this is without exception, that I've spoken to that has lost their extended unemployment benefit or was benefiting from it in the first place would in a second trade that situation for a job that allows them the dignity and sort of the meaning of work in their life and a paycheck. I mean, the notion that this whole narrative that they're trying to spin out, that this is a hammock, not a safety net. This
right.
is the way they describe it. It's just a paper over their ideology that government ought not have any role in creating any sort of equality.
Now,
in our
you've been
society.
pushing to get a vote on extending the unemployment benefits. Where are you on this?
Well, it's tough. I mean, right now, unfortunately, Speaker Boehner seems to take the position that it's the Senate that always has to act first. Now, I've sort of been an observer of Washington. I've only been in Congress a little over a year. But I've seen how this place is supposed to work. And I've never seen the House sit around waiting for the Senate to do its work before we take anything up. But that seems to be the Speaker's point of view. We have initiated a discharge petition. Very difficult to get Republicans to sign on. But we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to get this extension to the floor for a vote. So if we get all the Democrats, we need 17, 18 Republicans to be willing to walk across the aisle and put the interests of the thousands and thousands of their constituents that don't have unemployment compensation, that are losing their houses, losing their cars, not able to feed their families, put them ahead of their fealty to John Boehner. And if they do so, we'll get a vote, and I would bet we would get an overwhelming majority among Democrats and Republicans to pass this thing.
No doubt about it. You've pointed out there are a lot of veterans, too, who are caught up in this, correct?
That's the interesting thing. And it's an important point to make, but it's an important point to explain. 200,000 of the 2 million unemployed that have lost their federal unemployment benefits, the extended unemployment benefits, 200,000 are veterans. So I would ask Paul Ryan, as he sits back and meditates on what the cause of unemployment or the lack of opportunity for these young people might be, does he really think that somebody who put on the uniform of the United States of America, went overseas to some land that they never heard of, and put their lives at risk, that those people would prefer to be on unemployment, that they're lazy? They weren't lazy when they put on the uniform. And I tell you, those folks have a lot more in their character than most of the folks that I deal with on Capitol Hill. And for them to be so condescending and diminishing of somebody who is simply looking for a little help to get from their last job to their next job. And here's the point. The 200,000 veterans, they're not an exception to the 2 million. They're just an example.
Right.
I mean,
Congressman Dan Kildee here from Michigan, leading the fight to try to get a vote on extending unemployment insurance, particularly to help those 200,000 veterans. Your calls, your questions, welcome at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends, just a little break here and time out to tell you about something very, very important. It's that time again when we turn to you and ask for your help, because we wouldn't be here without you. It's so funny. Everywhere I go, people always say, man, you got 3 hours to fill every morning. How do you do it? How do you keep up with all of it? Well, let me tell you, we work hard at it. I mean, we start at the end of every show. The first thing we do, we just sit right down and start planning the next day's show and get a rough outline kind of where we want to go and what guests we might want to have and what we think the big issues are going to be. And then we go out and all day long, we're watching the news, reading the news, looking at the websites, following everything. I'm down at the White House every day at the briefings and keeping on top of things down there. And then we, meantime, Peter and Elisa particularly are on the phone, booking our guests for the next day. We reconvene in a conference call at 5 o'clock every afternoon and find out what guests we've got and where we think we're going to go the next day in terms of issues and things we want to talk about. We're also watching that evening, and then the next morning before every show, we reconvene again and sit down and put it finally together. And then we're on the air. So, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but we love doing it, and we couldn't do it without you. That's the important thing, because Free Speech TV, no corporate money, no government money. It is all viewer contributions. We work only for you and depend on you and ask you to help us once again as generously as you can. And there's a little incentive to do so. You can go to freespeech.org, make your contribution, freespeech.org. If you can give us $120, that's $10 a month. we will send you a mug, a Bill Press mug, and a pound of coffee from Peregrine Coffee, our favorite coffee shop downstairs in this building, for $240 or $20 a month. From Cowgirl Creamery, the best cheese in the world, believe me, made in California, close to our home in California. A special package from Cowgirl Creamery for $360 or $30 a month. You'll get the Cowgirl Creamery selection and a Bill Press mug as well. And a very special treat for those who are able to do so and willing to pledge $1,000 of Free Speech TV. You make your way to Washington anytime with a guest. I will take you and your guest out to dinner, some fabulous restaurant in Washington, and invite you in to watch the show the next morning. So I know you're part of the free speech community, or else you wouldn't be watching this morning. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your help in the past. And now please ask you to dig in again. You know how important it is. I know how much you depend on the independent expression of progressive opinion you only get on Free Speech TV. Now's the time to help again, and thank you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. 11 minutes before the top of the hour. We continue with Politico's Leigh Munsil at the very top of the next hour here. Right now, Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan with us. Congressman, I've got to ask you before we get to our callers here about the unemployment insurance, minimum wage, and those battles. Special election yesterday in Florida for Bill Young's seat. Alex Sink, David Jolly, a lot of hopes for Democrats on Alex Sink, who was our candidate for governor last time around. And she lost. What happened?
Well, it was a tough race, and Alex was a great candidate. I hope that she stays in this and we can have a rematch in November. But, you know, these elections are tough. This was Bill Young held that seat for a long, long time, won usually by 14, 15, 13 points, something like that. So it was a tall hill for us to climb, but we've got to look for these seats everywhere we can find them. Off-year election, in a special election in an off year is really tough. We got it down to less than 2 points. You know, a win would have made so much.
Do you think Obamacare made the difference? She was supporting it, and David Jolly said he wanted to repeal it.
Well, I mean, I think anything we can point to. When you have a margin that is so small, you can point to anything. It could have had an effect, no question about it. But I think most of the folks I talked to, Obamacare is actually not the first thing on their mind. I think the echo chamber and certainly in the Republican side of the Capitol would have you think that it is. So I think it might have been a factor. But what I hear about is, how are we going to get the economy moving again? How are we going to make sure that there are jobs and opportunity for more folks and not continually try to relitigate what are the obvious problems in the Affordable Health Care Act? But it was probably a factor to an extent.
There were 50,000 fewer Democrats who voted in this special election than who voted in 2012.
Right.
Turnout
for
big
sure.
Factor.
And here's the thing. This is the thing and I think this race, but others, and especially the races that we face in the fall, there's no. It's not a coincidence that many of the voices will try to make the politics of our country look like the real working class, the middle class folks are disconnected from the process and that money rules. The effect of that is twofold. One, money does make more of a difference. But I think it's even more cynical than that. If the impression is that my voice doesn't matter, I'll act on that impression.
And stay home.
Yeah. And so I think and what the other side ends up doing is they sort of win on both counts. They get to spend their money and influence these elections. But in doing so, the real effect isn't so much their persuasive power, it's the effect that they have by leaving people with the sense that their vote is meaningless, and they'll act on that.
So in these 2014 elections, well, let's take a quick hear from your home state. Troy. Is Troy, Michigan, in your district?
It's not in my district, but it's very close, and it's a great town.
All right. Nancy, with that introduction.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, good morning.
Thanks for taking my call. In 2012, in his State of the State speech, Governor Snyder said there was a welding job in every corner of the state. I immediately helped a young man I know get a Pell Grant, He enrolled at OCC. And all these trade school training classes are in the evening. This is Oakland Community College. And the buses don't run after 6:30. So if you don't own a car and gas is $3.65 a gallon here, they don't coordinate rides for the students. They said they'll try, but they don't. And my representative, who I'm sure Kildee knows, Bob Goslin, here in the county commission, is quoted on his website saying he doesn't like giving union bus drivers more work. So that's my comment. Thank you.
No, there you go. It's a vicious circle, right?
It is.
Thanks, Nancy.
And you make she makes a good point. Sure, there is some work out there. There's certainly not enough to fill all the jobs that or to have enough work for everybody who's looking for work. But even to the extent that there are jobs available, if, say, for example, there are welding jobs available. It's not like the old days of a welding job where you go down there and the guy who's doing the welding teaches you how to do it. It's more sophisticated equipment. You need to take some serious job training. So we cut job training. We cut transportation. We make it more difficult. We suburbanize wealth with policy that has encouraged the relocation of much of the workplace away from the urban core. And then we, shake our fingers at people who live in communities where they can't get good job training, they can't find decent transportation or afford a vehicle to get to the few jobs that are out there, and say that we have a workforce that's unwilling to work. It's really sad.
Congressman, glad you're there fighting the good fight. Go down and give Paul Ryan hell today.
I will. Yeah. Just for you. I'll mention your name.
That'll get you far. Great to see you, Congressman. Come back anytime.
Will do.
All right, Congressman Dan Kildee, I'll be back. I'll tell you what the president's up to today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends, just a little break here and time out to tell you about something very, very important. It's that time again when we turn to you and ask for your help, because we wouldn't be here without you. You know, it's so funny. Everywhere I go, people always say, man, you got 3 hours to fill every morning. How do you do it? How do you keep up with all of it? Well, let me tell you, we work hard at it. I mean, we start at the end of every show. The first thing we do, we just sit right down and start planning the next day's show and get a rough outline kind of where we want to go and what guests we might want to have and what we think the big issues are going to be. And then we go out and all day long, we're watching the news, reading the news, looking at the websites, following everything. I'm down at the White House every day at the briefings and keeping on top of things down there. And then we, meantime, Peter and Elisa particularly are on the phone, booking our guests for the next day. We reconvene in a conference call at 5 o'clock every afternoon and find out what guests we've got and where we think we're going to go the next day in terms of issues and things we want to talk about. We're also watching that evening, and then the next morning before every show, we reconvene again and sit down and put it finally together. And then we're on the air. So, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but we love doing it, and we couldn't do it without you. That's the important thing, because Free Speech TV, no corporate money, no government money. It is all viewer contributions. We work only for you and depend on you and ask you to help us once again as generously as you can. And there's a little incentive to do so. You can go to freespeech.org, make your contribution, freespeech.org. If you can give us $120, that's $10 a month. We will send you a mug, a Bill Press mug, and a pound of coffee from Peregrine Coffee, our favorite coffee shop downstairs in this building, for $240 or $20 a month. From Cowgirl Creamery, the best cheese in the world, believe me, made in California, close to our home in California. A special package from Cowgirl Creamery for $360 or $30 a month. You'll get the Cowgirl Creamery selection and a Bill Press mug as well. And a very special treat for those of you able to do so and willing to pledge $1,000 of Free Speech TV. You make your way to Washington anytime with a guest. I will take you and your guest out to dinner, some fabulous restaurant in Washington, and invite you in to watch the show the next morning. So I know you're part of the free speech community, or else you wouldn't be watching this morning. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your help in the past. And now please ask you to dig in again. You know how important it is. I know how much you depend on the independent expression of progressive opinion you only get on Free Speech TV. Now's the time to help again, and thank you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, President Obama, very, very important move today. He will sign an executive order trying to do something about raising overtime and extending payment for overtime to more Americans. So on the very basic principle that they ought to get paid for the hours that they work. It goes along with with raising the minimum wage as well. President doing that this afternoon. This morning he gets a daily briefing, and then late in the afternoon he and the Vice President will be meeting with Treasury Secretary Jack Lew. Look for this, the announcement on the overtime. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. Very, very important program. And our briefing this afternoon.
This is the Bill Press Show. broadcasting around the nation on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
For Pope Francis, it's his first anniversary, and what a difference he has made in year number 1. Keep going, Pope. Live a long time. Hey, good morning, everybody. Great to see you. Here we go. Thursday, March 13. Coming to you live from our nation's capital, the Bill Press Show on your local progressive talk radio station. Great to have you with us this morning to talk news of the day. We'll tell you what's going on. You tell us what it all means to you. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Join the conversation. You make the show. We love hearing from you. We also love getting your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Here we are in studio with our regular team here, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Hey.
Good morning.
Right here in studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Alicia Cruz has the phones all warmed up, buzzing this morning. Give her a call at 866-55-PRESS. And on the video stream, go to Twitter at BP Show, and you can find out the video stream, or locate the video stream, right?
On YouTube, yes,
Link
sir.
to it on YouTube. And Cyprian Bolding has got the cameras going and the lights on. Lights out at the U.S. Capitol last night, but the lights are still on here in the
How
studio.
crazy was that?
Right, I know, it really was. And we welcome to the program from Politico, defense reporter Leigh Munsil. Leigh, nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely.
Just a little, by the way, I'm back from a couple of days in Las Vegas, and thanks to Peter Ogburn for filling in while I was gone.
Happily.
There's just one little item of unfinished business. I do have to say, I've heard all about the big flap over the guacamole that you spent Monday bitching and whining about the fact that Carol beat you on guacamole, and Carol called me in Las Vegas.
Oh, come on!
Yes, she did. To let me know that she won fair and
I
square.
said that. I did say
fair
that.
and square.
I acknowledged that I was being a sore loser, but I was giving Igor a little bit of grief when we had him in.
But wait, Igor, the celebrity judge.
He taste tested the guacamole,
And
I lost fair and square. I lost fair and square. Carol made the better guac,
right.
But I was
even though she did forget the
cilantro,
right? But you know,
and
that
lemon.
happens. No, she always uses lemons.
I know,
that
but that's
not a
what
mistake.
that
She
was
used-
Peter's criticism. Another of Peter's criticism was the lemon.
If you lose, you lose. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I didn't say a
will
word.
own up to the fact that I'm being a sore loser.
I just want you to know.
All right.
I just want you to know there were reverberations of this all the way across the country. Yeah.
That's when I felt that heat.
You may not be invited back to Shea Press. Having a guacamole.
If I am invited, I hope she serves guacamole. I said after the show, the first bowl of guac to go was Carol's. Everybody was going to Carol's.
Yep.
She won, but I'm just being a sore loser.
Shame on you. Hey, so we're going to talk Ukraine here with Leigh Munsil, but the other big story that's driving the White House crazy now is that Senator Feinstein is on the warpath against the CIA and her allegations that the CIA was actually spying on Senate staffers. Jon Stewart last night said this criticism coming from a person you may not expect it to be coming from.
What's incredible about these accusations is they're not coming from Senator Ron, privacy is important, Wyden, or Senator Rand, don't kill me with a flying robot, Paul. They're coming from Diane, so the NSA is looking at your data, Feinstein.
The surveillance activities conducted under FISA and other programs operated by the National Security Agency are lawful. It has not been abused or misused. We need this capability to keep people safe.
See, she doesn't mind if our security apparatus might be looking at your stuff, because your stuff is but her is stuff.
I got to tell you, they spied on the wrong person when they spied on Senator Feinstein and her staff. Yeah, indeed. So we'll talk Ukraine and Crimea, what might happen on Sunday with this referendum, and where this is all heading in the first half hour. And then Melissa Boteach from the Center for American Progress here to talk poverty and what Paul Ryan had to say about poverty yesterday. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
A couple of other stories making news. We had a feeling this was coming, but yesterday the Los Angeles Lakers made it official. Kobe Bryant will not return this season from his fractured left knee. It was a little over, or not quite a year ago, that he tore his Achilles tendon, which kept him out for the playoffs last year, and he came back this season, but he fractured his left knee. He's out for the rest of the season officially. No word from Kobe about what happens next, because he's getting up there. He's 35 years old, which is pretty old for the NBA.
Indeed.
Yesterday, CNN Money released their report on the top 10 most affordable small cities. They use the Housing Opportunity Index, which takes a look at median home price compared with median income and the population of cities, and found out that the most affordable small city in America is
Delaware City, Delaware.
Yeah, close. Kokomo, Indiana. Right. Kokomo, Indiana is the #1 most affordable small city. Population of 82,000, median home price of $85,000, and a median income of $60,000.
All right. There'll be a rush to Kokomo today.
Kokomo, a small city no longer. And Pornhub, the website, took a look at their metrics to find out what types of pornography people are watching, and they found out that the states that have not legalized gay marriage are watching the most amount of gay pornography on their website. Turns out the top 3 states are Mississippi, Louisiana, and Georgia.
Wait a minute, for porn?
For gay pornography.
Are what? Mississippi?
Mississippi, Louisiana, and Georgia.
Huh.
Yeah, there's a lot.
You can look into that however you want to look into it. I'm just reporting the numbers.
I will resist the opportunity.
There you go.
The temptation. All right. But all Peter does is report the news.
That's it.
Yeah, right. So, Leigh, this big referendum on the president, the president met with the prime minister of the Ukraine yesterday at the White House, which is a way of showing there's no doubt about where the United States stands, correct?
Yeah, he met with the interim prime minister at the White House, which is kind of an interesting move considering that it was very clear from the get-go that the U.S. was supporting Ukraine through all of this. It wasn't that, another gesture of support needed to be shown or anything like that, but the president made a focus. He really wanted the prime minister here to talk about it, and so it's kind of interesting because of the Russia situation to have the prime minister show up in the U.S. and kind of stick another finger in President Putin's eye and kind of stick it to him by having the prime minister here. And so that's really an interesting dynamic also because we have to work with Russia on this and various other issues.
Yeah, right. No, it was a very, very powerful statement. I think just seeing the two of them side by side yesterday. So at the briefing yesterday, the question did come up about the referendum on Sunday in Crimea for giving the people there a chance to vote on whether or not they want to stay with Ukraine or go back to being part of Russia. Is there any doubt that's going to pass, isn't it?
It seems likely, and the U.S. is already kind of gearing up to reject whatever happens with that. The president and various other officials have declared that referendum to be unconstitutional as a part of Ukraine. They can't secede, at least not in that manner. So that's going to be really interesting to watch that play out. It's not something that the U.S. or the international community is very likely to accept.
Right. Jay Carney made the point yesterday that the U.S. will not accept it. The Ukraine will reject it. The European allies will reject it. What will Russia do?
Well, Russia will welcome it if Crimea votes to join them. That's what they want all along. They're already occupying it militarily, and so if all of a sudden that goes away because Crimea becomes part of Russia, then that would be good for them. But it's unlikely that it'll be that simple or be taken care of that easily.
I was in Las Vegas the last couple of days as MC for a program of 564 insurance executives from around the country. And I posed some questions to the audience. They had little clickers where people could vote. and I asked them what they thought would happen in Crimea. And one of the options was 73%. 73% said Crimea is going to become part of Russia, that the West will cave. They're not willing to go to war to stop Russia from annexing Crimea. The people of Crimea will vote for it, and that's the eventual outcome. Would you vote that way?
Well, that's not a lot of confidence in the U.S.'s position, which is really interesting.
But what can we do short of going to war to stop Russia? I mean, we can't cut off oil and gas to Russia because they don't need it, right?
Yeah. And it's really interesting with this issue, too. The president hasn't drawn any red lines. He hasn't put himself in a corner as far as what he has to do or would have to respond with if Russia does something that we don't like from this point forward.
Right.
So, yeah, there is certainly room for caving on this issue.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, we know what we would like to see happen, but even sanctions so far, the president seems to be ready for very tough sanctions against Russia, but our European allies, not so much, right?
Yeah, well, and our European allies are really closely tied economically with Russia, so any sanctions that hit them hard are also going to hit Europe hard. So it's not as easily separated. Russia, I was reading about how Russia kind of back in the Cold War was very separated economically, so sanctioning them didn't really hurt anyone else, and it was easier to do. But this time around, it's a different world. In Russia, it's part of the P5+1. It is part of the G8. It's part of all of our allied countries and nations. We need them on peace talks in Syria. We need them on trying to convince Iran not to get nuclear capabilities. They're really kind of tied into all of our allies' movements around the globe. And so it's really hard to isolate them at this point.
If doesn't it really get down to what Putin is willing to, or what? I mean, Putin's a guy who's making all the decisions, right? I mean, he clearly likes being on the world stage. Look at the Olympics. He loves now being part of the G8 and appearing with his leaders in the group photographs and all that. I mean, if he knew that he were really going to be isolated and just not invited to any of these meetings and not accepted, is that enough to make a difference with him?
To an extent, but we've seen by the incursion into Crimea in the first place that he doesn't always act in his best interest when it comes to how the international community is going to think of him and how we're going to react to him. He just came off the Sochi Olympics and really kind of bringing Russia up in the estimation of the world, and it went really well. There weren't any security issues, those sorts of things, and so then he came out of that, and we have this issue now with Crimea and Ukraine, and he acted the aggressor in a way that you wouldn't have necessarily expected unless you realize that Putin doesn't always make the decisions that make the most sense as far as getting along with the rest of the world.
Last week in front of the White House, there was a huge demonstration of Ukrainians there protesting what Russia had done in terms of seizing Crimea, and we cannot let this happen. We have to stop Putin, the whole thing. I walked out of the White House yesterday, and there was a demonstration of pro-Putin people saying we cannot let no money to the Ukraine. They're criminals. There was this criminal coup, whatever. Now, I don't believe that point of view, but they were there, right? Yeah. So here you've got these two sides. I guess my question is, in the end, of what national security interest does the United States have, whether this goes one way or the other? If Crimea is part of Russia or if it stays part of the Ukraine, who cares? Does it really make any difference as far as we're concerned?
It makes a difference to the extent that Putin at this point is posturing in a way that is dangerous. It's concerning. The incursion into Crimea is kind of indicative of what he's willing to do or could do in the future.
In other places.
In other places and in the Ukraine specifically would be the big concern. But the U.S. definitely takes it upon itself to keep an eye on these sorts of situations, to get involved where it's needed, and to, I mean, kind of the line from the get-go from President Obama was that we support the right of the Ukrainian people to choose democracy and to choose their own leaders, to have their elections. We support that as a nation philosophically. And so, yes, there's an easy point to be made for why do we care? It's all the way across the globe. It doesn't really touch us, but it does to an extent that everything that happens touches us.
Yeah,
in a way.
And I'm afraid it's a lesson. And love to have you join the conversation and hear your comments on this 866-55-PRESS. But it's a lesson on, I think, the limits of our power. And the comment that I hear from a lot of people, I heard from taxi cab drivers in Las Vegas, is why do we have to be the policemen of the world? You know, I think Americans just have lost their taste for intervention, maybe because of Iraq and Afghanistan. Are we really ready to put everything on the line for Crimea? 866-55-PRESS. Leigh Munsil here with us from Politico. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show. your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, we'll talk poverty. Paul Ryan and his comments yesterday stirring up a lot of controversy, saying basically that people are poor because they want to be poor. And for generations, they are born lazy and they don't want a job. Melissa Boteach from the Center for American Progress joins us right now. Leigh Munsil is in studio with us, defense reporter for Politico, talking about the situation in the Ukraine. Again, the president met yesterday with the acting prime minister in the Ukraine, and he said basically it's not up to us to decide which direction that country goes in. Here's the president's brief remarks. If we're
the most important thing to remember is this is up to the Ukrainian people. It's not up to the United States. It's not up to Russia. It's up to the Ukrainian people to make a decision about how they want to live their lives.
And they do have an election, Leigh, correct, that's scheduled in the Ukraine? I'm not talking about the referendum Sunday in Crimea, but the elections have been called.
It strikes me as April, but I don't know the exact date on that. But sometime in the near future, they're going to have an election to replace the interim prime minister. That's the plan, and to set up a permanent government and move forward from there.
With the support of the United States and our European allies, and I guess they'll go along with or without Crimea, correct?
Well, yeah, I would imagine. Obviously, the hope at this point is that they would go on with Crimea, but it may not be the case. It depends on what happens on Sunday with the referendum in Crimea. Also, Secretary Kerry is meeting tomorrow, with his counterpart in Russia, Lavrov, I believe.
So there's still the possibility of a diplomatic solution here, where the Russians could say, "Okay, we've made our point. Now we'll withdraw, but you got to be careful in the future," or whatever. Some face saving for them, right?
Yeah, that's the hope.
Let's all hope that might be the outcome. Although I still remain a little pessimistic about it. Hey, Leigh, good work reporting on this, and thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you again soon. We'll be back and talk poverty. What is the answer?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey friends, do you realize that heart disease kills more Americans every year than all forms of cancer combined? So when you donate to the American Heart Association, you're contributing to life-saving research with every dollar. You can make your donation today through the Pop Money personal payment service. All you do is download the app or go online to popmoney.com. Sign up to send your donation to jessica.gramillion@heart.org. Jessica.gramillion@heart.org. Here's the best part. The 95-cent fee is assessed to you, the sender, regardless of how much money you contribute. That means that 100% of your donation goes to support the ongoing research to help save lives across America. No fees are paid by the American Heart Association, getting more bang for your buck. And of course, terms and conditions apply.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Okay, continuing on this Thursday morning, March 13, the Bill Press Show brought to you today by the International Association of Machinists. The good men and women, members of the Machinists Union under President Tom Buffenbarger, sharpening America's edge on the global economy. And their work is featured. You can find out more about it. Their website, goiam.org. Paul Ryan, chair of the House Budget Committee, the leading thinker on budget issues among the Republicans, yesterday stirring things up and creating a lot of controversy with his comments on what is really behind the numbers of people still living in poverty in this country. Melissa Boteach is the director of the poverty program at the Great Center for American Progress, who joins us in studio this morning. Hello, Melissa. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning.
So I want to start with this. I want to talk to you about your recent minimum wage study, which had some very interesting conclusions in it. But Paul Ryan yesterday, so a week or so ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago, on the 50th anniversary of the War on Poverty, first of all, he put out a report basically saying the War on Poverty is a total failure because there are so many poor people still here.
Right. So, I mean, this is someone who's starting from a premise of every budget he's put out has gotten 2/3 of its cuts from programs for low and moderate income people. So if you look at the study, it reads like a justification for a foregone conclusion he's already arrived at, which is that he wants to cut these programs.
Yeah.
If you actually look at the data, you'd see that the poverty rate would be nearly twice as high if we didn't have these safety net programs in place. And so, I think there's always steps we can take to improve the safety net. But if you look at it as a whole, it's doing its job and keeping people out of poverty.
So they cut the programs that are there to help the poor and then complain or attack more people for being poor, right? I mean,
right. Yeah, exactly.
It's just hard to follow the logic. So that gets us to yesterday, and all of this is a prelude to his budget, which is we can anticipate what it's going to be. It's sort of like it won't be much different than his last budgets, right? Where you said
probably about 2/3 of cuts coming.
Two-thirds of cuts coming from programs to help the poor and the middle class. Yesterday, he appeared on Bill Bennett's conservative radio show and talked about what's behind the fact that there's so many people still living in poverty. Here, let's let Paul Ryan speak for himself.
We have got this tailspin of culture in our inner cities in particular of men not working and just generations of men not even thinking about working or learning the value and the culture of work. And so there's a real culture problem here that has to be dealt with. Everybody's got to get involved. So this is what we talk about when we talk about civil society. If you're driving from the suburb, to the sports arena downtown by these blighted neighborhoods, you can't just say, I'm paying my taxes, government's going to fix that. You need to get involved. You need to get involved yourself, whether through a good mentor program or some religious charity, whatever it is, to make a difference. And that's how we help resuscitate our culture.
So that's the problem, Melissa. You got these generations of men, right? Whole families have decided we just want to be poor forever and ever and ever, right? And they don't want jobs. They don't want anything to do with it. They just want to be poor. Right. That's his explanation.
And this is actually a big problem with the way I think poverty is perceived generally in this country, and not just by conservatives. I think we think of poverty often as being those other people over there, when in reality, if you look at the data, about half of all Americans, over half, are going to spend a year of their adult lives in or near poverty. So this isn't somebody else's problem. This is all of us. It's not those people over there in the inner city, code word people of color. Mm-hmm. It's all of us. And so I think that it's important that, when we're talking about these issues, to make sure that we understand that poverty is not separate from larger conversations on whether or not our economy is working for everybody. So to pin it off as some cultural deficiency or to pin it off as just an issue of the neighborhood, there's also a larger issue of an economy that is not working for everyone, in which inequality is growing, in which there's not enough living wage jobs.
He's also, he quotes often, and in his comments yesterday, he quoted Charles Murray, the sociologist, who's been debunked and discredited so many times, I thought forever, but Paul Ryan he's still Paul Ryan's mentor, I guess, or hero. Charles Murray, who says, quote, a lot of poor people are born lazy, right? And also said that African Americans are genetically less intelligent than white Americans. So, what he talks about, changing the culture in the inner cities, men who don't want to work, he's really saying blacks are lazy and don't want to work. Right? It's about the most racist thing I've heard any politician say in a long time.
It's pretty
Maybe
charged
since
language.
George Wallace.
Yeah.
George Wallace, rather.
It's pretty charged language. And, I think that we could all say, we can agree that there are neighborhoods of concentrated poverty in which we can make coordinated interventions. That's what the president's place-based Promise Zones initiative is about. It's about coordinating initiatives, working with local leaders, and trying to go in areas of concentrated poverty and work with civic leaders to make a difference. The president's out there talking about that. But we're not talking about it as a cultural deficiency. We're talking about it as structural issues and historic disinvestment from neighborhoods that we should work to address.
Now, one of the ways you can lift people out of poverty is by raising the minimum wage, which, of course, Republicans were glad to do under President George W. Bush, but will not do under President Obama, just because it's Obama who wants it now, not George W. Bush. You released a study last week on the impact of raising the minimum wage at the Center for American Progress. What did you find?
It's very interesting. We found that if you were to raise the minimum wage to $10.10, as is proposed by the current bill in Congress, you would save $46 billion over the next 10 years just in the food stamp program, now called the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So that's not even the safety net overall. Just in the food stamp program, you would save $46 billion over the next 10 years. And between 3.3 and 3.8 million fewer people would need SNAP to put food on the table. So you really can't have it both ways. You're either saying, oh, I want to cut SNAP. No, I don't want to raise the minimum wage. Well, how do you propose that these low-wage workers, people who are caring for our parents in nursing homes, people who are waiting our tables, people who are cleaning our offices after we leave, how do you propose they put food on the table if you want to cut their nutrition assistance and you refuse to raise their wages?
Right. So the real impact of, a very definite link, right, to raising the minimum wage and getting people out of poverty.
Right. Yes, there's a very definite link. The CBO study says nearly 1 million people. Other studies say up to 4.5 million people would be lifted out of poverty by raising the minimum wage to $10.10. And there's also, it's saving taxpayers' dollars. Right now, we are subsidizing corporations to pay their workers low wages.
Mm-hmm. Today, the president is also going to add something else to this, to his efforts to help middle class and help working families by a proposal, I haven't seen the details of it yet, to say that those who are working overtime, right, should get compensated for working all those extra hours. What businesses do today is they classify people as contractors, or white collar or something, and they can, instead of 40, it's 50 or 60 or 70, which they're expected to do and not get paid for that extra work. It's only fair if they're working those extra hours, they get paid for those extra hours, right?
Exactly, yes. And I think that you're hitting on a larger point here that sort of ties it back to Ryan, which that it isn't the war on poverty that failed, it's the economy that's failed. Over the past 50 years, our economy has fundamentally changed, and it's growing income inequality, pulling apart. The rules of the road, for example, on these contractors, people misclassifying employees, have been against workers. And at the same time, we're attacking the very programs that have proven successful in helping people stay afloat in this economy. So I think as we celebrate and mark this 50th anniversary, we have to take a hard look at some of our economic issues and how they're driving more people into poverty. And to the extent that we can improve the safety net, I think people are open to that, but not starting from a place of cutting food, housing, and education for poor people.
Yeah, right. It is amazing to me how the Republicans in the House can refuse to raise minimum wage, refuse to extend unemployment benefits, cut food stamps, cut Head Start. Just go down the list, right? And then complain that there are too many people living in poverty and blame the people who are still living in poverty based on
they're culturally deficient.
Yeah. Culturally deficient is what it is.
Right.
Yeah. 866, I got to tell you, 866-55-PRESS. It is outrageous. And again, Paul Ryan, this is not Steve Stockman, right? This is not Michelle Bachmann. This is the chair of the House Republican, of the House Budget Committee, who was a Republican vice presidential candidate in 2012. They consider him the thought leader of their party. Pretty scary. 866-55-PRESS. Your comments here with Melissa Boteach from the Center for American Progress.
This is the Bill Press Show. On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 13 minutes before the top of the hour on a Thursday morning, March 13. Melissa Boteach from the Center for American Progress, director of their poverty program, is here in studio with us. Good day to be here because yesterday, Paul Ryan, well, now we know, right? There's no secret to why there's so many poor people today. It's just they want to be poor. Generations, the same family, want to be poor. Especially if they're black. That's it. They're genetically inferior and they want to be poor, and they just like getting those government paychecks, and that's their life, right? If you believe Paul Ryan, that's what it is. That's what he says, and that's what his budget will reflect, cutting those programs even more. Randy is calling. Oh my gosh. I've never heard of this town. Weeki-Waki, Florida.
Shout out to Weeki-Waki, Florida.
All right, indeed. Hey, Randy, welcome.
Good morning, y'all. It's one of those Indian names. The Indians think we talk funny, too.
All right, well, good. So what's your comment about Paul Ryan?
Okay, in general, I've had arguments with a lot of my right-wing friends on this. They're wrong in general. People are generally want to work, but there are lazy people, and you can find anecdotally specific cases of lazy people. I knew a guy that was proud of not working. He didn't want to not make money. He just didn't want to work. And I know another guy that on food stamps bought steaks and stuff. Coincidentally, both of these people were white. So when Paul Ryan, and actually there really was a Cadillac welfare queen. Name was, I think, something Taylor.
Yeah, I don't know. But, I mean, we're not talking about all people on welfare. We're not talking about all who used to be on welfare. We're not talking about all poor people. I'll tell you what, Randy, I know a lot of people today who don't want to work and who get paid a lot of money for not working. They're called members of Congress. They get paid $175,000 a year for doing absolutely nothing. And they're proud of it. John Boehner said, judge us not by what we do, but what we don't do. Right? I mean, that's their standard. And how dare they do you think they have any sense, Melissa, of, like, Paul Ryan comes from one of the wealthiest families in Wisconsin, right? He's born with a silver spoon in his mouth, right? And do you think he has any idea what it's like to be out there wanting a job, not being able to find a job, Well,
I think if he did, then you wouldn't be seeing proposals to cut people's lifelines. You wouldn't be seeing comments saying that poverty is purely attributable to cultural deficiencies as opposed to an economy that's not working for everyone. And it's interesting. We just did a poll at 5 and 10, the campaign that I direct at Cap Action. And we sort of forced a choice for people. We said, do you think poverty is a result of an economy that is not producing enough jobs, things cost too much, people don't have access to good education and health care, or do you think it's a result of people not taking personal responsibility? And by huge majorities, people said, no, poverty is a structural problem. And that includes majorities of conservatives, self-identified conservatives saying that. So, I think, look, everybody has a story of someone that they know who, whatever it is, but we don't, data is not the plural of anecdote. There's the majority of people are struggling, they're working hard, they're trying to figure out a way to make ends meet. And when we take 2/3 of proposed cuts in a budget and take them out of the pockets of low and moderate income families and the supports that are helping them move up in the world, that's not the values that I think are expressed by equal opportunity for all.
So we know that Paul Ryan's comments a couple of weeks ago about the war on poverty and his comments yesterday about this inner city culture, people not wanting to work, it's just a prelude to his budget, right? I mean, he's trying to build the intellectual foundation for his budget. When are we going to see his budget, and what can we expect in it?
Well, we're going to see his budget probably late March, early April. And what can we expect? I think we can expect more of the same. I mean, the past several budgets have, again, gotten 2/3 of their cuts from low and moderate income people, paired with lopsided tax cuts for the very, very wealthy. So it doesn't even really achieve much deficit reduction because you're channeling all the savings you're getting from cutting supports for low and middle income families up to the very top, which are people who are doing just fine in this economy in the name of, of growth. And I think if we look at the Bush tax cuts in the 2000s, we can see that wasn't really the best way to grow the economy, was to give a lot of money to wealthy people.
Right. So if the programs are hurting today, right? I mean, they'll even be in worse shape tomorrow if Paul Ryan's budget is adopted.
Yes. We've already seen across-the-board cut to food stamps back in November. Every single food stamp household got hit with a big cut. We've already seen unemployment insurance expire. We've seen failure to raise the minimum wage, even though there's broad bipartisan support for it. It's time to really for people to stand up and say they need people to be passing legislation that's going to help working families, not screwing them further.
Your report on the minimum wage is up on your website.
Yes.
Where can people find it?
AmericanProgress.org, and you will see that if we raise the minimum wage to $10.10, it would save taxpayers $46 billion in food stamp spending.
AmericanProgress.org. Right. And I'm sure you have some analysis today of the impact of President Obama's overtime proposals as well. Particularly important as we had a presentation at the White House briefing yesterday. Both the minimum wage and the overtime, particularly important for women in the workforce, who would benefit mostly from it and are hurt by today's policies, particularly so. A lot of women supporting their families, single women out in the workforce. Melissa, out of time. Too bad. A lot more to go, but the clock rules. So thanks so much for coming in today.
Me.
Thanks for your good work at the Center for American Progress. Say hello to all of our friends over there.
I will.
Melissa Boteach with the Center. It's AmericanProgress.org. My parting shot coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show. The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
And congratulations today to Pope Francis on his first anniversary. Just 1 year ago today, a man we never heard of was elected Pope, a Jesuit from Argentina who took the name Francis, and what a difference he's made in just 1 year. He's turned the stuffy, old, detached, and uptight church upside down. He told America's Catholic bishops, for example, "You're talking too much about abortion and same-sex marriage. Get back to talking about what Jesus talked about. Get back to talking about poverty and helping the poor." On homosexuality, he told Catholics worldwide, stop your obsession with gays and lesbians and stop insisting they be treated differently just because they're gay. Who am I to judge? His famous words, many Catholics are too quick to judge. He also told Catholics to stop being so judgmental about non-Catholics. By good works alone, he said, anybody of any faith can get to heaven, even those of no faith at all, even atheists. Pope Francis, what a wonderful, welcome breath of fresh air. I mean, he makes so much sense, he's almost enough to make me want to go back to church again. Almost. But he's got a lot more time to work on that. At any rate, congratulations to Pope Francis. Hey, folks, on a Thursday, that's it for today. Have a great, great day, and then come back and see us right here again on a Friday morning.
This
Have a good one.
is the Bill Press Show.